Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing Assetto Corsa Competizione European GT3 Series for 2021 Season 2. We're bringing you this, of course, on the PC version of Assetto Corsa Competizione, and we're doing this in collaboration with the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. And it's great to be here once again as we get underway with the third round of the 8-round calendar. Now, our schedule for tonight, as always, we can see here 25 past 7 this evening, British Summer Time or UTC +1. We'll be getting underway with the drivers' briefing, while our drivers will be taken into the virtual drivers' conferencing room to be given the ins and outs from our trackside steward today, and indeed our head steward himself. That'll be Kevin Smith. At 7:30, so 5 minutes after that, we'll be getting underway with the 15-minute qualifying session to determine who will be starting on pole and the grid further back. And then at 7:45 this evening, we'll be getting underway with the 75-minute feature race. Of course, with the all-important strategy component and the fast and furious racing. And then after that, we'll be wrapping up with some post-race podium interviews at approximately 9 o'clock. As for your commentary team today, as always, you've got myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, in the commentary box, and I'm also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. But going away from our schedule and on to our partners, who I think we should make a special mention to, without whom this would not be possible. We start off, of course, with the SimGrid. Now, the SimGrid, for the uninitiated, is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for Assetto Corsa Competizione. And I believe also quite recently, the SimGrid has also just expanded out into R Factor 2 as well. So now they host 2 official platforms, that is Assetto Corsa Competizione and also R Factor 2, but of course we're focused on the former rather than the latter today. As for Coach Dave Academy, meanwhile, well, Coach Dave Academy, our other primary sponsor here, is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. And so, if you want to know a little bit more, if you want to try and find that extra second, or even if it's 0.1 of a second around the circuit, or how to better fine-tune the car for strategic performance over the course of the race, you'll want to go to Coach Dave Academy, the prime place to find out further information. And indeed, thanks to the SimGrid for providing us with the stewarding team and also the organising team, which is supporting us in running this league, and to Coach Dave Academy for providing us with a good number of our prizes as part of that all-important prize pool in the eyes of our drivers. Now, I should point out, before we jump into the calendar, this broadcast is being brought to you on 3 platforms site. It is on Twitch, at TX141 on Twitch, but also on the more official platforms. There is the NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel, that's NXTGEN Racing on YouTube, and there's also the NXTGEN Racing Facebook group, that's NXTGEN Racing on the Facebook groups. Coming away from our partners and our broadcasting platforms to our calendar. So the first 2 rounds, we started off, of course, 2 weeks ago on the 7th of September in Donington in the United Kingdom. Then last week we went to the Belgian circuit, your second most known Belgian circuit outside of Spa-Francorchamps, and that is Zolder. And that was on the 14th of September, a wet and wild Zolder circuit. And now we are back in the United Kingdom once again today for round number 3, and that is the Brands Hatch circuit, the 21st of September 2021. And as you can see, we've got 5 more rounds straight after that, but we focus today on round 3 Brands Hatch. Now, going into this round, the championship standings after the opening 2 rounds, and these are provisional as the stewarding decisions are still being made with respect to last week's round. Unfortunately, our stewards have not had the time to conduct the post-race stewarding due to personal circumstances, but they are furiously working at it as we speak. You can see the provisional standings are as follows. Starting with your top 10 here, we've got Andrés Mesa leading the championship at the moment on 139 points, but he's only 5 points clear from Harry Phillips. The Aston Martin driver of Mesa having a slight advantage over the Bentley Continental driver of Harry Phillips, but the 2 of them really proving to be at the moment the major contenders for the championship. But I say that, of course, we're only 2 rounds in. We've still got plenty of rounds to go, and it's not polite to rule out the rest of our drives, but they have been the 2 drives who so far have both claimed a win, and the big question tonight is, will they make it a second win for one of them, or will we see another member of the field take to the top step of the podium? And a good number of names there within the top 10, and we've got Ralph Piringer, of course, in the BMW M6 GT3, whose very consistent performances well inside the top 10 mean that he's on 125 points at this point in time in P3, but he's only a point ahead of both Ethan Faulkner and Kieran Prendergast. Faulkner being ahead of Prendergast based on result countback, both of them are 124 points in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. And we've got Lucas Seedorf there in P6, and remember last time out in the final 3 minutes of the race at Zolder, Prendergast and Seedorf having that colossal battle, which ended up in quite a bit of contact towards the end, but both of them really fighting for those positions, and we do wonder whether we will see them come to blows again once tonight. We also got Marcus Fox there in P7, who shouldn't be ruled out. The Porsche 911 driver, the best of our Porsche drivers at this point in time based on standings, putting in a very consistent performance at Donington and the same at Zolder, and we hope to see even more of him today as well. The Slovenian of André Jacklin in P8, Fabio Chieda in P9, and Adrian Loisinger in P10. Unfortunately, we will not be seeing Loisinger take to the circuit today due to the fact that he is currently abroad on his own personal holiday, so he will be back within a couple of rounds' time, but unfortunately we are going to miss out on our P10 man, as he will not be taking it to the circuit tonight. Meanwhile, outside our top 10, we can see here from 11th to 20th, we have got quite a fast and furious field emerging here. And really, all these guys could be in that top 10 come the end of tonight with a good result. The likes of Daniel Korogoski, of course, who's in that prime position on 90 points in P11. We also got Paco Lara there in P12. Both drivers, Korogoski and Lara, both putting in very good performances in the McLaren 720S machinery. And Anthony Brown there as well in P13. We won't be seeing Anthony Brown tonight, or Ant Brown as he likes to be known, as he has got a personal item to attend to, but we wish him all the best and we look forward to him coming back in the near future for the next round. Looking a little bit further down there, we do have Timofeo in P19 in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3, having a bit of a difficult start to the season down in P19. I think some of the results could have got a little bit better for the pink Lamborghini driver, but we are looking forward to seeing him take to the circuit once again. And as we come out of our top 20 and then look towards our top 30 here, we can see Gareth Mills in that P21 position. Mills having a bit of a better result last time out at Zolder and starting to build up a little bit of momentum. We know that he takes a bit of time to build up that momentum, but he is looking towards the midfield now, and it is starting to appear. And a special call out to P24 man there, Emil Blaine, who many of you will remember had to retire the car very early on at Zolder due to technical issues, due to him experiencing a number of latency issues, i.e. his internet connection was unstable, and he actually retired the car before he was asked to retire the car by anyone because he felt that he was a danger to drivers around him. So the Aston Martin driver showed great respect to other drivers and a concern for safety, and we look forward to him being back out the circuit tonight. We also got Chris McKenna there in at P28 on 34 points. Indeed, he'll be looking to get some more points on the table. Marco Ticini in that P29 position on 32. I believe it may be the case that we're not going to be seeing Ticini tonight due to a clash of personal circumstances, but we will wait and confirm that in the circuit very shortly. And then outside of our top 30 coming down to our remaining 10 drivers here, because we do currently have a championship field of 40, and I believe we also have a 41st driver joining us tonight. We can see that Walter Lux in P31 and 23 points, having that disconnect last time out, and it does mean that he's coming back fighting today. He wants to absolutely nail this one and get plenty of points on the board. We'll also see there the early retirement of Chris Wall, as we've been listed in P32, and then Brandon Warren in P36. We can tell you that the Nissan GTR Nismo machine of Brandon Warren is going to be here tonight at Brands Hatch. It's going to be his first round in the series because he wasn't able to make the first two due to a personal clash, but we will be seeing the Japanese machine in the capable hands of the American take to the British circuit, and we really look forward to that. So we now come on to our track, of course, and what we can see here is the Brands Hatch GP circuit in West Kingsdown in Kent in the United Kingdom, consisting of 9 corners, and the image here provided to us by John Chapman from wikipedia.org. The 9 corners, and many of them are known by name and will be referred to by both number and name tonight. A lovely circuit just up the road from myself. In fact, I only live about 20 minutes drive from Brands Hatch, so it's a circuit that I know and love, and many of our drivers love it. Other drivers absolutely loathe it because it is a very tight circuit, and a circuit which is all about medium speed apex performance, and also the ability to trail brake into corners, and also because of how tight the circuit is, it means that overtaking comes at a premium, with our typical overtaking zones being in the run from Brabham Straight down towards Paddock Hill Bend at turn 1 and the run up the hill towards Druids at turn 2. You can occasionally see overtakes into Surtees into turn 4, but it's a very heavy trail braking zone, which means it's a gamble when you do go for that overtake, or rather you'd like to be behind the driver coming out of Surtees, so you've got the long run down Pilgrim's Drop towards Hawthorne Hill at turn 5, and then you've got the run of the Derek Minter straight down towards Westfield Bend at turn 6. After which, overtaking opportunities really close off until our drivers get up towards Stirling's Corner or Clark Curve, because the run from Westfield up to Sheen Curve, as many of you who watch the GT World Championship, the Real World Championship, will know, you cannot really go too wide down from Westfield through to Sheen Curve, as we did see with the Jota McLaren car having an incident with one of the Mercedes cars in the GT World Challenge Sprint Race number 1 recently at Brands Hatch, where it ended up with the Jota McLaren car ended up over the fence at Dingle Dale. But still, our drivers will hopefully not be looking to jump over the fence tonight, and instead they'll be trying to keep it as clean as possible, and we expect some great battles in the run down clearways towards Clark Curve at turn 9. Now, our rules, as always, our same rules applies as have been applied for the last 2 rounds. Balanced performance set is going to be the base 2020 variant as provided at Assetto Corsa Competizione. And in terms of the race, we have a mandatory pit stop which will require at least 1 litre of fuel to be put in the car, and our drivers can choose whether they want to change their tyres or not. And there is no defined pit window. Drivers may choose when to pit, and this is going to be the big thing tonight, I reckon, in the fact that because Brands Hatch is such a tight circuit, if you find yourself stuck behind a driver and you cannot pass that driver, then you will need to think about that all-important pit stop to get yourself in that clear air and leapfrog the driver. Otherwise, you are going to end up in a very sticky situation where your entire race is going to be costed away because of the fact you just couldn't find a way past one particular driver. I've been there myself, and I can tell you, Brands Hatch is a circuit where it's do or die on the overtaking. If you can't find a way to overtake on circuit, you need to find a way to do it in the pits. But whilst we are waiting for that all-important driver's briefing, which is only now 4 minutes away, we head to the live pictures, of course, down the circuit. We can see a number of our drivers in the pit lane right now getting themselves ready. We're just checking into the chat with you guys and girls, and nothing at the moment. Do not be shy, feel free to say hi. Do let us know how you're doing, how your week's been so far, because it is Tuesday. We're 2 days into the 5-day working week, and I hope you're all doing well and you're smiling. Let me know who you're cheering on and what your expectations are tonight. Now, of course, as we're winding up, we can see in this final practice session, he's parked in the pits right now, the Spaniard of Andrés Mesa from Distinct GG. He's currently set the fastest time in this final practice session. We've got quite nice conditions here at Brands Hatch at the moment as well. It's been quite sunny so far with optimum track temperatures in play. Well, sorry, optimum track conditions right now. We've got an ambient temperature of 16 degrees centigrade, a track temperature of 23 degrees centigrade, and we've got a light amount of wind as well, which may cause some of our drivers to feel a little bit of knock-on effect through some of the corners, but Mesa has been looking the strongest so far, 5 tenths clear of Harry Phillips in that P1 right now with 1:22.380. But remember, for a lot of our drivers, they're just getting themselves up to speed. And you can imagine, whilst they're doing these laps right now, it will be the case we can perhaps expect some slightly faster laps when we go into the actual qualified session. Although I say that, remember last time out at Zolder that Harry Phillips took pole in the end, and he was 2 tenths off of the fastest lap he set in practice when he did take pole. So it doesn't always work out that way. But meanwhile, we look a little bit further around, and of course we do see the 2 rivals here. We've got Harry Phillips, who it should be pointed out is now racing for the Wild Things Racing team. He's changed from Cohesion Motorsport to Wild Things Racing, and a brand new livery to boot as well. Very fetching livery, and you'll see a lot more of that later on in the show. But we look a little bit further around. We've still got some drivers arriving down the circuit. I hear that Paul Scott has just pulled into the paddock. And you can see Paul Scott here in the Optimum Motorsport machine. He's in that McLaren, of course, and looking to go racing tonight. And, well, we should point out to the driver, who, yeah, haven't seen for a long time. It's the VRS Satellite Racing driver of Brandon Warren here, the American in the Japanese machine, the Nissan GTR Nismo machine. As he makes his way through paddock, he'll expect the V6 twin turbo engine in that car to absolutely roar around this circuit, and we cannot wait to see what it can do in the capable hands of the American driver as he makes his way through Druids right now. We still got about 1.5 minutes before the driver's briefing, and we will hop into that when we do get the opportunity to, folks. But meanwhile, we see that he hops back to the pits. Indeed, most of our drivers out doing the jump back to the pits, and we should also point out here, you're looking at this rather white but BMW orientated coloured M6, BMW M6, but it's also got the colours of the French flag in there. Who is this? We haven't seen this car before. Well, you have. It's Jesse Monroe from BSP Racing. But you may be asking, well, wasn't he running a bit of a black livery in the first 2 rounds? Well, we had some slight issues with his livery, and we were able to get those resolved. So this is the official livery that BSP Racing's driver, Jesse Monroe, is running here. A very fetching livery, and it is great to see Monroe's at the circuit once again. And we bring you some of those pre-race thoughts from some of our drivers as we go into the qualified session. But right now, everybody getting ready to jump into the pits and jump into that driver's briefing, as we see Chris McKenna here making his way through what was Stirling's Corner there, and now heading down clearways towards what will be Clark Curve, and I would presume he's going to be coming into the pits very shortly. But as he makes his way around here, in fact, he's going to complete this lap and then come into the pits. We are going to head to the driver's briefing, and we are going to get set for the words of our head steward here from NXTGEN Racing, and that is Kevin Smith. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you an idea, all of our drivers have headed into the briefing room, but we are, at this point in time, just waiting to hear from them with respect to the rule site, and we will let you know if there's any special rules in place. And you'll get to hear them, but we will repeat them for you. Also, I should point out we do have a newcomer on the circuit. We spoke about a 41st driver. We will introduce them in a short while as well, but we now get ready for our driver's briefing. It is the case that everybody just inching their way into the briefing room right now. Just give it a brief moment, and I think that's a couple more drivers coming into the room right now. Of course, you can't see this on the screen. This is all being managed in a Discord channel off screen. But as soon as I see the individuals in particular pop in, I'll let you know. We should be expecting Kevin Smith to arrive any moment now. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin has just blessed us with his presence.
Expected to be clear throughout. There's no chance of rain, or very minimum chance of rain, should we say. Although on the weather, we are looking at a clear day of qualifying and racing. We have a few things to go over, which have been reported by people, drivers as well. After the race has finished, there is to be no ramming or hitting of any cars deliberately. Anyone displaying this kind of behaviour will receive a qualifying ban for the next race. I'm sure most of you know or use direct drive wheels, and it can cause severe harm or pain to drivers if they've still got hold of the wheel, so please bear that in mind. Post-race penalties and incidents from round 2, myself and the other stewards are going to look at them while you're qualifying. Due to time zones and work, we haven't had a chance to do this during the week. Unfortunately, we do apologise, and we'll be implementing a better system to do this over the remainder of the championship. Going into tonight's race, we have 25 on track. Please use your outlap to get yourself well spaced throughout the circuit. It is a short circuit, as we know, 1:25s roughly on average lap time, so please bear that in mind. If you are on an invalid lap or you've just left the pits, please give way to the drivers on flying laps during qualifying. Penalty system will remain the same as the previous round as well. Please remember there's one pit stop. Tyre change is entirely up to yourself, but you do require 1 litre of fuel minimum. And pit exit as well, guys, during the race and during qualifying. Please use your delta in your mirrors to see where cars are coming up to approach you on track. And we would like to ask you all to hold the tight line round turn 1 out of the pit lane, especially when rejoining the circuit. This will allow the guys still racing on circuit as you leave to know that you're going to hold that line and get round you safely, and of course to avoid any incidents. And I believe that is it, everyone. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the general chat and we'll get those dealt with as soon as possible. If not, qualifying will get underway in 1 minute and you are free to leave the chat.
So as we heard there from Kevin Smith, a number of rules in place, particularly around respecting the exit line on the pit exit and going through turn 1, keeping that tight line through paddock hill bend, because the pit exit does emerge right on to turn 1 effectively here. It's a short pit lane, but it's also one that emerges tightly onto turn 1, and the apex line through turn 1, it means you effectively cut off the nose end of the pit lane exit. Also on top of that, regards to potential contact between drivers following the end of the race, we believe there was an incident between 2 drivers in particular, which I will not go through the names of the drivers right now, but I believe one driver almost picked up an injury as a result of it, and it was the case that they had to put that rule in place because it can happen, and we now will wait to go qualifying. As we can see here right now, 26 drivers taken to the circuit at the moment. I believe that is our maximum number of drivers who are planning to take to the circuit, but we have got plenty of racing ahead, and we do wonder who is going to be on pole here. And also with Brands Hatch being such a tight circuit, of course we do have that major question of whoever is on the top, who is going to be able to take us all the way to the finish line. Because remember, just because you have a really good start here does not mean to say that you don't end up making a mistake right when it's most critical here. But as we've seen out, the qualifying session gets underway as everybody starts to creep out of the pits. But Lucas Seedor here making his way around the VRS satellite racing drive, coming through Paddock Hill and up towards Druid's Corner at turn number 2 here. Everybody getting out as quickly as possible. Indeed, I think there's quite the fever pitch at the moment with regards to drivers trying to get those qualifying times in. We do have that 15-minute qualifying session, of course, and so we do expect our drivers to get in the best part of, say, 6 to 8 laps worth of qualifying here, because it is only 1.5 minutes per lap around this circuit. It's quite a short circuit compared to what you can expect, but as a result, that does mean it's very important to get those laps in, but also get those laps in when the rubber is down on the circuit. I think every lap that's done by a driver will lay more rubber down the circuit. It means there's going to be greater grip available for our drivers, and you might want to be that guy who goes around the very last lap, because you'll have the track at its best, and as a result then if you've got clear air, very low fuel in the car, you can absolutely hammer in a fantastic qualifying time. But as everybody gets themselves set, we say hello to Zira Guranian in the YouTube chat. Hello chat, and salute to Kevin Smith. It's good to hear from you, Ziraya. And we've also got Konstantin Romanenko, who is saying hello to Ziraya, and I think to us as well. It's good to see you guys in the YouTube chat. And again, if you are tuning in on the Facebook, Twitch or YouTube platform, feel free to throw in your thoughts. Let us know who you're cheering on and what your expectations are for the race. Now, whilst building up to this race, of course, and talking about expectations, we did have the opportunity to catch up with one of our newcomers today. Well, in fact, our newcomer, and that is Daniel Tran, who we are just trying to find out on circuit right now. And here he is in the Half-Life racing machine. So for those of you who are wondering, Half-Life, doesn't that sound very familiar? Is he talking about radioactive isotopes? No, he's referring to the Valve-published PC game known as Half-Life. Gordon Freeman would be very proud of that livery. Fantastic livery on the car as he makes his way around. And I had the chance to catch up with the Swiss, who was saying to me, well, he clarified for me that the H in his name is silent as he goes a bit wide there coming through a Sheen curve and gets the car back on the circuit rather rapidly. But the thing he was saying was that he's pretty nervous ahead of tonight. He didn't have much time to practice Brands Hatch, and the track is definitely a track he would not have wished for as a starter of the series. Indeed, Brands Hatch, whilst it may look easy, is a very intimidating circuit. We wish him all the best. Indeed, all the drivers down the paddock were wishing him all the best on his debut tonight as he crossed the line there. Watch out for him in the number 48 car in the Mercedes AMG machine. Meanwhile, looking around to some of our other drivers here, when I had the chance to speak to Lucas Seedor, as we can see him now making his way up through Dingledale and into Sheen Curve here, the Ferrari driver from VRS Satellite, of course, the Polishman with a slightly new livery tonight, a modified livery on his previous variant. He was saying that with regards to last week's race, he was disappointed on the P4, as he expected a top 3 at Zolder, but going into tonight he's not expected too much. He hopes for a P10, but any place higher he can achieve will be a big success. He feels that this is perhaps one of his weakest tracks and anything can happen here, but he's going to give it his best shot all the same as he makes his way through. His opening lap time there being a 1:24.4, already 2 and almost a bit seconds of the pace there of Harry Phillips, 2.1 seconds to be precise. Harry Phillips striking the first blood there with that provisional pole, but we've got a lot of lap times to come in, a 1:22.329 being the opening bar set by Harry Phillips as he makes his way through the left-hander of what is Surtees there and comes roaring down Pilgrim's Shop and heads all the way down towards what is Hawthorne's Corner. And as he makes his way all the way down, in the meantime, let's take a little look further out. We can see the Slovenian here of Andrés Jacklin from the Food Point Racing team, making his way up towards Hawthorne's corner here at rapid pace indeed. The number 33 car didn't get a chance to catch up with him, but he was smiling as he got into the car. He seemed quite positive going into this round. Indeed, Jacklin, one of those drivers to watch out for. He does love pushing it to the limit. But one driver I did have the chance to catch up with is our championship leader, and that's Andrés Mesa. And some rather limited faults, but also, whilst he may be a man of few words, as we come to find sometimes, he's a man of some very precise words and to the point ones. And the Spaniard was saying to me going into this race is that he'll just say that he hopes not to see the beautiful rear end of Harry's Bentley disappearing off into the distance this time. And as we will recall from the interview, the post-race interview we had with him at the end, oh goodness me, and that does not look very kosher, and that was contact with a McLaren there, and I think that was Korogowski, the contact, yes. So he very quickly made his way into the pits, but contact between himself and Mesa's not going to be happy about that one whatsoever right now as he tries to recover the car. There's definitely some damage to that Aston Martin, and I think we could be expecting a jump to the pits. For when he won't be allowed to jump to the pits, remember our drivers are not permitted to use the jump to the return to garage functionality over the course of the qualifying session unless there's a special emergency, but otherwise they're expected to return to the garage under their own steam. So the Spaniard having a difficult start to his qualifying, as we see there a BMW into the inside wall there coming out of Paddock Hill Bend, and that is Pieringer, the German driver there from Jochen Schweizer, powered by BMW Racing Team here, having a moment in the number 405 car, and indeed I think just simply attacking the exit, the run out of Paddock Hill Bend a little bit too hard, and that causing the car to unsettle. And we will give you an onboard lap in the near future. Pieringer, of course, currently P5, 1.1 seconds off of the fastest lap set by Phillips, which has been dropped down to 22.158 now. The lap's getting faster and faster as we go. We can also see here we've got Walter Lux. Now Walter, of course, with the disconnection last time out at what was Zolder. The Austrian driver has returned to the field once again here in the rather awe-inspiring liveried McLaren 720S. The 2UG SimGrid driver making his way out towards Sheen Curve right now. Currently P6 in this qualifying session, 1.1 seconds off on a 1:23.352. And what he was saying is, whilst last week he had the disconnect, which sucks, and it was his first ever sim racing disconnect, he had some technical issues in his local area, so he's been hoping that those have been resolved. They're out of his control. So his target tonight is just to see the checkered flag. That is his main goal tonight, and he felt that the pace at Zolder was not too bad. He thinks the top 10 finish could have been possible there, and he's looking to transfer that into tonight. It's growing confidence in the 530 driver as he pulls into the pits and the mechanics go to work on servicing the car before he heads back out there. Now we also had the chance to catch up with Chris McKenna, the Distinct GG driver here in the number 92 car. He's currently P23. He's yet to set a lap time, the British driver, as he makes his way through Dingle and up towards Sheen Curve here at turn number 7 I should say. And what McKenna was saying to me in the build-up, I had a really good chance to catch up with, is that Brands Hatch is going to be interesting as it's such a quintessentially British circuit. Undulating, narrow, and by no means simple. It's an unforgiving lack of runoffs, and definitely grass could certainly mean that we'll see some rather different results this week compared to the last 2 weeks. And I completely agree with McKenna. It is one of those circuits where you can imagine that a driver just has to make the tiniest of mistakes, get a little bit complacent, and it will all go to pieces. And he's going to be cheering on both his distinct GG teammates, given the fact that they managed a double distinct podium last week. But he's going to be just giving it his best eye, as always, as well, as he makes his way out of Druids and down towards turn 3 at Graham Hill Bend here. Looking very smooth right now, P17 on his opening qualifying lap at 24.5. But you can see there in the timings, we have got a lot of drivers very close together in that midfield, particularly from Tom Gander in P10 all the way down to what is P Scott there in P16, all of them separated by only 4 attempts in that space. And speaking of Gander, here is Tom Gander, the tganderservices.com Ferrari driver here, as he makes his way through the right-hander of what is Clark Curve here, turn number 9, to complete his current lap. Let's see what he's able to do here as he comes across that timeline. Does he improve? He does. He moves up to P7 with a good lap there, a 1:23.3, only 1.1 seconds now of Harry Phillips' time. And speaking of times and laps, we're just going to jump on board with one of our drivers who is making their way towards the end of a lap. That's going to be our target, of course, so that way we can give you an idea of what Brands Hatch is all about with the ride on board. Indeed, we've got Marcus Fox here, the Fox Sim Racing driver, who we will hop on board with once he makes his way out of Stirling's, and then you'll get a full flavour for what it's like of a lap which is just under 1.5 minutes. 1.5 minutes of intensity, of course, in the GT3 machine. It'll be brought to you by the Porsche driver here, and we expect the Porsche to be quite strong. He's currently P4 as Marcus Fox, only a second off of Harry Phillips' time right now, but Fox a very solid driver. So as we jump on board here, you run on board with Fox's dashboard, you head down towards what is Mark Curve through turn 9 then, and now coming out the corner and stamping on the throttle. In fact, coming into the pits there, that's a little bit of an annoyance, but you'll have to forgive us there. We can't control what our drivers decide to do in terms of when they pit and whatnot. As we can see, everybody continues to make their way around right now. 6 minutes to go in this qualifying session, and as we continue to look around at our timing screens right now, we see Korogowski here in the McLaren and making his way down towards Stirling's corner as he makes his way through here. Currently P13, 1.8 seconds off the pole, and we jump on board with Korogowski here in the McLaren, and hopefully he will stay out rather than jump into the pits, and we can give you that lap tour of the circuit. So coming out the final corner then, making his way on to the start-finish line to head down towards Paddock Hill Bend for another qualifying lap. Going into Paddock Hill Bend then, coming all the way down to third gear, using the 100 metre board as his reference marker. And as soon as he clears the apex, he'll stamp on the throttle there and use the momentum downhill and the curve there to settle the car before heading up towards Druids. Coming all the way down to second or first gear, depending on the gearing of the car and what race mode he's in. And as he comes out of the corner, now heading down the hill here towards Graham Hill Bend, moving over to the right before attacking that apex and stamping down the throttle, but not running too wide here. Our drivers have been told they can only put 2 wheels beyond the white line on the exit of Graham Hill or come up into Surtees. Trail braking in and trying to gently apply that steering wheel, get the rear round nice and slowly, so that way you can build up that throttle as you pass the apex onto exit. Now he's got the long charge all the way down Pilgrim's Drop here, the straight, heading up towards Hawthorne Corner, heading up towards turn number 5 here. Trail braking in down in 4th gear, as we can see a little bit of traffic there with Andrés Mesa just moving out the way in time. 4th gear, but he runs a little bit wide there, does Korogowski, but now he rejoins the circuit at Westfield Bend here. A 3rd gear corner, nicely through turn number 6, and as he heads up the hill through Dingledale now up towards Shinker, turn number 7, trail braking in, a blind summit apex there, and means you've got to be full of beans and full of confidence as you make the way over the hill. And now coming into Stirling's corner, a dropped corner here, which means you can come all the way down to 2nd gear and really attack on that throttle before now making his way down clearways, the straight known as clearways, towards that final corner. Clark curve here, trail braking in, and listen out for it, he'll stamp on that throttle as he goes a little bit deep, but he was trying to target a really tight apex there, so that way he could get on the throttle nice and early, use the width of the circuit, but still a good lap despite the one mistake heading through Hawthorne Step. I think that was influenced a little bit by Mesa's presence on the inside, but Korogowski, thank you for your tour of the circuit, and indeed I think we all appreciate that. He's currently P12, can he get himself up into that top 10 with 4 minutes of the qualifying session still to go? As we look up and down right now, we can see Paul Scott, meanwhile, from Optimum Motorsport in P15. A good lap from him, a 1:24.0. That was his last lap that he set in terms of this qualifying session. It's his fastest lap so far. 2 seconds almost off of our provisional pole position. But right now it is looking as though we have got a very condensed midfield here. To give you an idea of that condensed nature of it, we can see from Piringer in what is P5 all the way down to what is Monroe's in P20. The field is separated by 1.5 seconds, so you have got 15 cars in the space of 1.5 seconds time. So in other words, what you've got with every 10th of a second, there is a car in this qualifying session in terms of laps. That's how tight Brands Hatch ends up normally being. You normally get a couple of fast drivers who are right out there, but these guys such as Harry Phillips, Kieran Prendergast and Andrés Mesa are top 3 right now. And speaking of Mesa, he's making his way right now through Westfield Bend here. These guys are out there really, everyone's pushing it to the limit, but these guys are absolutely on the limit right now in terms of those track limits and knowing how to really push the car hard around the circuit. Whereas the other guys, they will be pushing to the limits as well, but perhaps haven't quite found as much time on the circuit as our top guys. But you can imagine it's going to be the case that whilst these guys will be in their own little battle, we can expect that midfield to really erupt at the start of the race. It is going to be a very, very tight midfield as they all make their way around right now, and we are heading to the final 2.5 minutes of this qualifying session as we just check in with race control there. And nothing at this point in time with regards to race control or any further observations from our stewards. So it is going to be the case as they all make their way around. Only 2 minutes to go, and once they're complete, this is going to be the determination of the grid. But right now, you can imagine it is very close as Mesa on that previous stat of 1:22.2, which we saw him finish, putting him at provisional P2 for the time being, just ahead of Kieran Prendergast, who's in P3 right now. But this man here, a 1:22.158, he's still trying to find some lap time out there as Harry Phillips, but he is looking as though he's on course to make it another pole position. It'll be back-to-back pole positions here. He'll be the one with that momentum and carrying it forward. But look at Kieran Prendergast, P3 at the moment, but he's going to be, if it currently stands this way, he is very close to Phillips' time, but he will be sharing that second row with his Ferrari rival of Lucas Seedorf right now. We've seen these two come to blows already this season at Zolder. Will we see it again today? Hopefully not to the caliber of seeing them both take one another out. We wouldn't want to see that, but we do love to see some dicey racing between our drivers, and they'll aim to keep it clean. But one driver who we haven't really talked about so far, the distinct GG driver of Ethan Faulkner, and again, one of these interesting performances from Faulkner. He seems to have this uncanny ability to end up just within the top 5 or just around it, but you don't see him too much, and then it's in the race that he really comes alive. Can we see the Irishman potentially doing another fantastic drive here? He's currently P5, he's a second off of Phillips this time, and perhaps he's got the car more set up for the race rather than qualifying here, given the fact that it does look as though he's quite well off. And speaking of somebody who's not as far off, Marcus Fox here moves up to P5, going on to his final qualifying lap here, improving to a 22.968. That's a phenomenal lap from the Porsche driver here, and really trying to siphon his way into that field right now. As we can see, a lot of drivers have gone into the pits, but it is the case that for Fox, he's carrying on his final lap right now, unless he's going to be coming to the pits at the end of this one, as Andrés Mesa is pushing his way down towards what is Hawthorne's corner right now. Can he respond to Phillips as he makes his way down? We unfortunately get the camera obscured there by the billboard over the top of the circuit, and as he makes his way through what is Hawthorne's here, very smooth through Hawthorne's indeed, Mesa. This is a very fast lap as he comes through. He runs a little bit wide out of Westfield, but you can use the runoff space there to your advantage. He comes through and now heads up through Sheen Curve here. Can we expect Mesa to be able to get himself onto pole position? As we do see there, I believe that is Velkovsky there going a bit wide in the run into what was Sterling's corner there, but he moved out of the way just in time. Mesa coming through the final corner here. Will it be potential pole position? We'll see him cross that line. It's full use of the width of the circuit. He'll pull over to the right now to shorten the run to the timing line, and as he comes across, is it enough from Andrés Mesa? It's not enough. He's not able to improve that. That was a 22.584. Meanwhile, Harry Phillips, who's currently out there on the lap as the checker flag is now waving for this qualifying session. I believe it is Harry Phillips who has taken pole position with a 22.158, but Andrés Mesa only a 10th off, and Kieran Prendergast takes P3 ahead of Lucas Seedorf here, and these two will be on that second row battling one another once again. And look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Marcus Fox there in P5, a brilliant qualifying result from the Porsche driver, and we'll just wait to see if Faulkner improves. Faulkner does not improve. He's parked up, in fact, by the tyre barrier there, getting towards where our marshals are coming out. That's Graham Hill Bend, so he will not be taking any further part in this qualifying session, but that is the grid, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody has completed qualifying, and now we await for the switch over to the race. But a brilliant shootout in qualifying between Phillips and Mesa and Kieran Prendergast as we now get ready to go racing. So as we clear the screen for you and get all the time and data set up correctly, it is going to be the case that all of our drivers will be looking to try and get the best possible start they can at the Brands Hatch circuit. Now, the race start, very important for all of our drivers for the simple reason, as we do see a little bit of mixed up field here. I think some of our telemetry data is not right. Alternatively, that is not the correct grid, because we have got Jacqueline on pole here. That's not right at all. I think there's going to be something going to be fixed here very shortly, but something does seem to have gone slightly wrong with the setup of the grid. We'll wait for that confirmation very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but the grid is a little bit out of order right now, and, well, we will wait to see what happens here. As we just check in with you guys and girls in the chat. And it does seem as though, yes, it seems as though we've had a slight technical glitch, but our grid is not exactly the way it should be right now. But we will get that confirmed as to what specifically is happening as soon as we possibly can. You can see Tom Gander here getting ready to go racing. And we're checking with you guys and girls in the chat, and we can see here we do have Prentice Senior tuning in, supporting his son, of course. The Printer, when we say that, it is, of course, the father of Kieran Prendergast here, who will be starting quite a bit further up the field here rather than where he's currently starting from. This is not the correct grid, I can definitely tell you that. And I'm wondering what's going to happen here with regards to the grid. But Kieran Prendergast will be starting a bit further up. He'll be starting on that second row, or should be starting on that second row. But we also say hello to what is Konstantin Romanenko here, who says it's a practice session, not quali. It was meant to be a qualifying session. Perhaps something's gone a little bit wrong on the server. But thank you for pointing that out, Konstantin. We appreciate that. David Simon as well in Facebook. Looks interesting. Well, glad to hear that you find it interesting so far. It's definitely going to get even more interesting when we do go racing. But hello to you, David. We can also see Zira Gunman there saying go Korogoski, and Korogoski, of course, the driver being referred to here, who I should point out did not qualify P2. I think we do have a bit of a glitch with regards to the way the grid has been set. And we have also got in the chat Low Power, who is saying good evening, Paul. Hello to you, Low Power. It's good to see you here, and I hope you're ready for some very close-knit racing. Loads of you tuning in. It's great to have you all here, and well, we've got a countdown of about 2.5 minutes. I'm just checking in with race control as to what specifically has happened here, ladies and gentlemen. But as soon as I hear anything, I will let you know. Nothing at the moment, as I'm just waiting for that potential confirmation. As soon as I get anything, we'll let you know. As we do, I think, get a reset of the grid here. So everybody, the grid has been cleared. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. As soon as we get anything, do not go anywhere. I expect we will be going racing within the next 2 to 3 minutes. Alrighty folks, we are back. So to clarify, we've just had the situation confirmed to us. So what has happened is that the qualifying session which you saw was unfortunately set as a practice session on the server in which this is racing. This race is being hosted on, I should say. So as a result, what it means is that qualifying did not quote-unquote occur. And so there will be a 5-minute qualifying shootout as soon as all 27 of our drivers have rejoined the server. And I believe they have all just joined. So we should be expecting a quick transition to the qualifying session very shortly. Now, I can appreciate that for some individuals who are racing, this is going to be one of those situations whereby it's going to cause them some degree of grievance or animosity because they've put in all that hard work, and none more so than, for example, say Harry Phillips, who takes to the circuit once again right now because he got it on pole in what he thought was the qualifying session, to see that it's been taken away from him and he has to go again. Conversely, of course, for other drivers who may not have had a perfect qualifying session, this is a great opportunity. In fact, you can see it's a 15-minute qualifying session again, so we are doing the full qualifying session again, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for that, we are going qualifying a second time. So my apology, I've just had reread the note. No, we've got another 15-minute qualifying session here. So that initial session you saw was effectively a free practice session for 50 minutes. So that's all been resolved. We've got qualifying once again here. And then we'll be go for the race. So that explains everything that has happened. And as we can see here in the chat, we do have NXTGEN Ultra there, who is clarifying the situation as well. And it's good to see you as well, Fordzilla, Dave, Alex 4, and seeing that you've got the stream up on your 60-inch TV and popcorn. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, or indeed you won't want to go anywhere, but I can imagine some of our drivers right now will want to be going somewhere, and that is going racing, of course. As we can see further around, we've got Lucas Seedor here, and again, right behind him, I believe we do have a Ferrari driver here, and that is Prendergast behind him. Now, with regards to Prendergast, we saw in that what was originally thought to be the qualifying session, setting the P3 time, and he'll be looking to do that again. Let's jump on board with Prendergast as he goes around the Brands Hatch circuit to give you an idea of what one of our faster drivers is able to do at the British circuit. So coming over the brow of the hill then, down in towards turn number 1, we can see him coming all the way down through the gearbox to third gear and getting nice and tight on apex, and see how he has to clip the apex to throw the car to the outside there, or stamping down on the brakes here, going into turn number 2 into Druids. Very aggressive on the braking angle there, coming right into the apex of the corner before coming down the hill now, down towards Graham Hill Bend here. So using the full width of the circuit, nice and tight on that line, and get on the power as soon as he possibly can before now coming up towards Surtees Squad. Let's see how late he goes. And they're going as late as he possibly can into Surtees. Does drift a little bit wide. Then you can see the car just slightly wiggling due to the camber change of the road angle change as he came out of Surtees, but keeping it together very well as he now makes his way up towards Hawthorne's corner. Coming all the way down to 4th gear there, and now making his way, roaring up towards what is Westfield Bend here as he comes down to 3rd gear and clatters the apex curve. They're using the full width of the circuit to carry as much momentum through Dingledale and up into Sheen Curve. As he goes over there, using the width of the circuit, not going off the circuit compared to the driver at front, who I believe that is an Aston Martin. That may be Emil Bain ahead, but as he makes his way down towards what is the final corner, heading up towards it's Clark Curve, coming through the right hand here, nice and tight, just missing those bollards by an inch there, by a hair's width. Now coming out the final corner across that timeline, what's it going to be from Prendergast? It's going to be one of our opening qualifying times. In fact, that was Seedor ahead of him, my apologies. Prendergast a 23.157, but do remember there's not much rubber laid down the circuit right now, and as a result our drivers will be trying to lay even more rubber down to get the track conditions to optimum. We've still got that sunshine out, we've still got that track temperature of 23 degrees centigrade, so the temperature's not changed, but the quality of the road surface right now does need a little bit of improvement, and to do that we need our drivers to put as much rubber down the circuit as they possibly can. And this could really turn the tables in qualifying right now, because they were going around the circuit with optimum conditions, i.e. when the ideal grip is available, when the rubber has really been laid to the surface, but now it's the case that those qualifying times should improve as time goes on. But right now Prendergast striking first blood with that 23.1, as we do see a Marcus Fox here, P3 right now, but we can see the cluster of times once again as everybody is coming together as he makes his way out to turn number 4 and heads down towards Hawthorne's corner at turn number 5. Now a little bit further back we can see Tim O'Fay, well in fact Tim O'Fay not currently out on the circuit, and a number of our drivers are making their way onto the circuit. As we've got Brandon Warren here making his way up towards Westfield Bend now. and to do it all again effectively as he comes charging it through the corners. And as we can see there, Fordzilla saying, I really should get myself on the grid. You should definitely get yourself on the grid, Fordzilla. If you're up for it, we're always welcome for people to join. And we can also see Brett Crewcamp join us in the YouTube chat. Thank you, Brett, for the compliment, and it's good to see you in the chat. Now, for those of you wondering who is Brett Crewcamp, well, he is one of the drivers who took part in Season 1 of this series. He was one of the 2 Grumpy Monkey drivers, a very good driver, Brett Crewcamp, fantastic driving in the Bentley. And I'm sure that if you were to ask Brett what series does he race in now, or ask him how he found it, he'll be able to outline his thoughts. But it was great to have Brett racing around the circuits, and whilst he's not here this time around, he's in the spectators position indeed, exchanging the driving seat for the spectator seat. He's probably got his deck chair out somewhere around the circuit right now. As we can see, we have got Ablasser here, Christian Ablasser, making his way through that right hand, of course, for TUG of Racing Esports Green as he comes down the hill through what was Druids into Graham Hill Bend here. And you see taking a rather gentle line. And we do have the repeat of the earlier form. We can see Harry Phillips has taken that provisional pole with 10 minutes this qualifying session, this second qualifying session, to go over 22.665 and really pushing the limits there, almost losing the car on the exit of Westwood. And that shows you how much Phillips is pushing. And to take you through the psychology here, folks, you may be thinking, okay, for our drivers, so what? It's another qualifying session. Why does it matter? Why can it upset a driver? I've been there myself. When you put the car on pole in a qualifying session and you put in an absolute monster lap, now we do not know what Phillips's ultimate target time was. Let's say, for example, it was a 22.2 and he did that 22.1. In his mind, he will have thought that he has exerted himself to the point of he's gone beyond what he thought was possible, and so he's done it all and now needs to focus on the race. To be then told that lap did not count and you've got to go again, it pushes you to a point of frustration. Now, some drivers can react to it better in terms of just simply, okay, I've got to go again, I'll deal with it, and there's probably some swear words in it. Other drivers can literally have to do a mental reset. And now, I don't know which school of thought that Phillips is falling into, whether he's in between. That's just to give you an idea. For some drivers, this second qualifying session will hurt them mentally and they've got to overcome that mental challenge. Whereas for others, they will see this as a point of redemption, a second chance. And you can see that already in the fact that Andrés Mesa on his opening qualifying lap, a 23.133, but look at the gap between himself and Kieran Prendergast here as the track has finally come into optimum in terms of the available grip with the rubber coming down, so that we should see those qualifying times start to push into those 22s and those low 23s for our lower in the field drivers. But for Mesa right now, you can see the gap between himself and Prendergast, it was a 10th come the end of the past session. Oh, and goodness me, Phillips into the wall there, hitting the wall, and he's had to jump to the pits with a broken car, as we can see that Mesa, meanwhile, staying out on the circuit and trying to push really hard as he comes roaring through Sterling's Bend. As he comes all the way through, we can see here it's the case as he comes down Clearways and in towards Clark Curve. Will he improve? Will he come into the pits? No, he stays out here and he's going to come to that tight line here to come to the end of this qualifying lap. What's it going to be from the Aston Martin driver? Championship leader right now. Is it enough? It's not enough to improve at 24.027 as we've got more drivers in and out of the pits here. And we can see in particular Mesa just carrying on. Meanwhile, we'll look a little bit further back. We'll see Andrew Jacklin here, the Slovenian driver, coming out of the pit lane and down on to Paddock Hill Bend to get his warm-up lap in. And for some drivers here, such as Jacklin, for example, alternatively, say Jesse Monrose, it is the case that right now they will be trying to use this time as much as possible to find that temp, to find that extra couple of attempts, because they will know based on the drivers ahead of them, and particularly for Jacklin, well, he knows he's 1.3 seconds minimum down on the fastest time in this qualifying session. You could argue he would know he's almost 2 seconds down because of that 24.039 that his current qualifying time is. This is an opportunity for him to find some time out on the circuit. He may end up finding himself behind, say, Mesa, Prendergast, Phillips, Lux, and if he can find himself behind them, he may just pick up 1 or 2 pointers riding behind them as he goes around the circuit. Of course, he will set his car up the way he prefers to have it set up. Some of the drivers around him will have it set up differently if they're in the Aston Martins, but it's all good information and fact finding for a lot of our drivers in that midfield and towards the bottom of the field. They will benefit a lot from this situation in terms of having a second qualifying session, or even for some of them they may be thinking, please let's just get qualifying out of the way, let's get on to the race, and I can understand that sentiment as well. Now, meanwhile, another driver who went to talk about, the Tamiya driver here of Fabio Chiena, currently P23, the Swiss driver in the number 47 car, as he makes his way there through Hawthorne's corner. And as we take a look at him making his way into Westfield, we can see it currently on what is a 1:25.422, one of our slower times out of the field. We've got 26 drivers on the circuit right now. I'm not sure what's happening with Tim Affair, who is our 27th driver, who's not listed on my timing screens right now, but he was expected to be taken to the circuit. But we can see here Chiena making his way out of Sterling's right now. A little bit wide out of Sterling's there. That may be a track limits and a lap invalidation as a result, as we see him charging all the way through to what is Clark Curve here. But meanwhile, I can tell you that pole position has now changed hands with 5 minutes to go, and Andrés Mesa has just taken provisional pole of a 22.662, and that puts Harry Phillips now only 3 thousandths off a pole. And this is where it all begins, because remember, Brands Hatch overtaking very difficult. Pole position, or being the furthest out of the field, is so critical here, and for Mason Phillips, they will both want to be in that pole position slot. They will want to have the ability to control the width of the circuit, because they are so close in these qualifying times right now. And Prendergast, well, he right now is in P3 and trying to do everything he can in order to improve those lap times. But one driver who's started to fall a little bit further down the order with the second qualifying session, Lucas Seedorf, right now really struggling for time in P7, and we can see here a 23.643. It's not working out for the Ferrari driver at the moment. The Polishman really not able to find the same time that he had earlier on, as he makes his way now down into Sterling's corner here. 4.5 minutes to the qualifying session to go, and as he follows that, I think that's Gareth Mills just ahead of him, who's P17 at the moment on a lap. The GM Racing driver from South Africa, of course, in the number 4 car, doing what he can through that right-hander. As he pulls into the pits, he decides to come off the circuit, and we'll see Seedorf come around to complete his current lap. Is he able to improve here, or is it going to be a case he's got to go again? We crossed that timeline. It's definitely not an improvement. That was a 26.67, and as a result, as he makes his way around, we can see, hold on a second, pole position has now jumped up to a 22.515. Kieran Prendergast has currently got his name on the top step of this qualifying session. He is 1.5 tenths ahead of Andrés Mesa here, and this is now where we get into that situation. Could we see a completely different individual on pole as a result of this? As we look behind them, we can see Perringham making his way through it, and I think it's going to be the case that this lap may be spoiled a little bit, although he just did set a new fastest lap personal best as he flashes lights here, and Prendergast will need to be aware of this, because, oh goodness me, Perringham just sliding a bit too much there into Druids. You can see the rear end just collapsing its way around as he made his way into Druids there. I think just simply putting a bit too much steering in there with the front engine rear wheel drive, but we note they did improve to 23.295, so that's putting provisional P5 for the time being, as Harry Phillips does respond to Prendergast and Andrés Mesa, going up to what is, if you'll excuse me there, going up to what is a 1:22.593. But as he jumps back to the pit stop, I'm wondering whether there's been an easing of that rule due to the fact we've got this second qualifying session about returning to the garage by using the game feature rather than driving all the way round again. We can see our drivers continuing to put in the laps here, and one driver we haven't talked about a little bit, and he's currently just in the top 10. He's in that P10 position, Rainer Affenstedt, as he makes his way down towards what is the Shin curve right now as he comes through. He's currently on a 1:23.751. He's only 6 thousandths off of P9 man Daniel Korogowski, also a McLaren driver here. The McLaren drivers find themselves in a good midfield position, but the best of the McLaren drivers, it should be pointed out right now, the Spaniard Paco Lara, the prototype racing team driver here, as they make their way through Hawthorne's corner. And indeed, Lara really coming alive at Zolder. It was a really good drive from the Spaniard, and again today in qualifying, Lara really seems to be finding some pace, and this is great to see for Lara. It's really starting to work out for the Spaniard, and can they potentially secure themselves a well-earned spot in that top 10? Well, right now, only a second off of Prendergast's provisional pole time. You would argue that Lara is going to be quite confident in being in the top 10 here in qualifying with only 2 minutes to go. You've got 2 more laps for most drivers here as they make their way round. Looking a bit further down, however, we do have the situation where we can see, and we have got here Andrés Zafaratos, as there's I think that was contact between Emil Blaine and also Zafaratos there, but that looked as though it was very distant contact. It didn't look as though the two of them had come together physically there. I wonder if there was a little bit of a latency issue. Blaine's car definitely seems to be experiencing a little bit of a latency issue as we see the Nordic Racing Team driver getting ready to return to the circuit here and really struggling, but I think that may be something to do with internet connectivity, because they did not look very close together. But what I was about to say of Andrés Zafaratos, who is just waiting to return to the circuit. The GPFR driver here, currently P26, last of our runners, 5 seconds off the pace and not having the best of qualifying sessions here. And Eduardo Tripiano as well, another Porsche driver here, currently 3 seconds off of the pole time. The SRB IJ18 driver here, the Spaniard, really not able to find time out on the circuit right now. He is only a 10th off of Chris McKenna, to be fair, and we see McKenna here in the Bentley car for Distinct GG. It's a case that we have got some drivers who seem to be a bit off the pace, but still they're going to have their own little battles, I reckon. In this race, they're not going to be counted out as we see him make his way through Hawthorns once again. As we wait for those times to come in here, I can tell you that as it currently stands, it is still Kieran Prendergast who is holding on to that pole position. It's still provisional, of course, to 22.515. The BP Racing driver here as he comes out of Surtees. He's on his final lap. He won't have time for another one after this, as we also say hello to Craig Pearce in the Twitch chat. Even Murray, Paul, unfortunately, I'd never live up to the commentating expertise of Murray Walker, but thank you for that joke and the compliment as well. As we see it, Brett Crewcam in the YouTube chat saying back for season 3 for sure. Bentley in the workshop. That's great to hear, Crewcam. We look forward to seeing you back out on the circuit. But Prendergast right now is our provisional pole man. Can he hold on to it? Will we see Prendergast return to that front row after what was a great start in the season opener at Donington, but it went wrong at Donington for Prendergast? Can he recover it today as he makes his way around? This is the end of the qualifying session. He comes out the final quarter here, and what's he going to do? Does he improve? He's as close as he possibly can be to the wall right now, so we think he's got a good one. He does not improve. A 22.6. Harry Phillips, meanwhile, is currently on that. What about Andrés Mesa as well? Well, Mesa's making their way down through what is Graham Hill Bend right now, so they've got a long way to go. Meanwhile, Harry Phillips is making his way through what is Hawthorne's Corner. I should tell you that Marcus Fox right now, provisional P4 on what is a 123.391. If he finishes P4 in this qualifying session, I believe that is a season best so far for the Porsche driver, and that's phenomenal. And Piringer and Ulrich are into the pits, and it's only Paco Lara could upset Fox right now, so I think Fox has confirmed his presence on that second row, which is great for him and will mean that he gets a really solid starting position, as we do see Harry Phillips really attacking the apex curve there of what is Sterling's Corner. You can see in the body language of Phillips, he wants to get this done. He wants that pole back. He's really throwing the Bentley around. Oh, and it's gone loose in the final corner, and Phillips into the wall. That means he'll be starting P2 as Andrés Mesa has jumped to the pit, so it does mean that it is pole position for Kieran Prendergast in the end. A brilliant effort from the Ferrari driver as he returns to the pits, and we do have a different driver on pole today, and it is Kieran Prendergast. We will be going racing very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. So as we return to the live pictures for you now, ladies and gentlemen, we see Prendergast taking that pole position in the end by one of the smallest margins imaginable. Only in the end, 0.08 of a second between Prendergast and P2 man Phillips. And as we look on board with Prendergast right now, you can imagine that in his mind, he will want to absolutely nail the start of this race. And his father will be very proud of him, I'm sure, for taking that pole position. But now it all comes down to that race distance. There's plenty of time, and he wants to nail the start. Meanwhile, our P2 man of Harry Phillips, you have to imagine that in his mind, he'll feel as though he's been in a way cheated of that pole position, and you can understand why he perhaps feel that way, but he'll be now getting ready for that race. And Andrés Mesa, of course, will be starting on that second row, and that just provides a little bit of difficulty because he's not quite in that position to go charging into Paddock Hill Bend with the lead advantage that inside line, but he does have the inside line from P3, and what it could mean is that in the acceleration race between himself and Phillips, could he get himself up the inside? And in the big question, Marcus Fox there, that P4, a season best in qualifying so far. He's going to be smiling from ear to ear. What can he do with that, given the fact that he's qualified that well? And Paco Lara in the end, it should be pointed out, as we look on board here with the McLaren driver, in the end, qualifying P5 right at the end of the session there. That's a fantastic qualifying result for the Spaniard. And they're going to be a little bit a fly in the ointment for a number of our regular placements on the top 3 rows. Bertetti, Faulkner and Piringer, with Faulkner qualifying P6 and Piringer P7. What can Lara do to hold on to that top 5 position, particularly at the start of the race? Now looking a little bit further down, we've got Walter Lux here, who has stayed with us. No connectivity issues this time around for the TUG SimGrid driver. The Austrian currently parked in P9, and that's fantastic to see. Of course, just inside the top 10, able to creep into that top 10. What can we expect from Lux as they get ready to go racing? And Lucas Seedorf in, how this qualifying session has not worked out for the Polish driver here. Now, of course, he will be thinking about the racing. We know that Seedorf does have the ability to dig very deep in the races. And do keep in mind, and I should point out now, ladies and gentlemen, as you may see on the side of the car there, particularly the link, the CFO aga.pl link there, that is a link which references to the charity he's racing for. He's racing for a local charity in support of a major cause. If you want to know more, you just need to type what's on the side of the car into what is your internet browser, and you can find out more. But the quick summary, and I should point this out because it is a very fitting cause and it motivates him on, I can definitely tell you that with regards to Lucas. If you just give me 2 seconds with respect to that. My apologies, in fact, we don't have the information available right now, unfortunately, due to some technical limitations. And here we go. In fact, so he is effectively racing for a local charity where he's helping a young girl fight spinal muscular atrophy. So if you want to know more, that is www.siepomaga.pl, and he's racing for a little girl called Olga, who is fighting spinal muscular atrophy. So it's a lot on the line for him mentally, and he will want to do his best tonight. As we just check in with the stewards right now, nothing to be said, so we will be going racing very shortly. As we look a little bit further down the order, we can see Tom Gander here in P14. He'll be fighting alongside Daniel Korogowski. Daniel Korogowski, of course, in P13 here. These two have come to blows before in terms of battles. Great battle between the two of them. We can expect plenty more of it here today at the British circuit. Further down that order, we have Jesse Monrose, of course, starting it in P18, having another one of those midfield qualifying sessions, but Monrose will try to find their way up the order. I am sure here the BSP Racing driver will be looking forward to this. And Emil Blaine starting in P17, a little bit of contact between themselves and one of the Porsche drivers, but I think that was a little bit of a mistake on Blaine's part. But again, we did have some slight connectivity delays there, but I believe they have already owned up to it in the stewards room before we've gone racing here. So I think that will be given a thumbs up from our stewards for the fact that Blaine, a very honest driver, and I think Blaine, one of those drivers who loves to be transparent whenever something goes wrong. And then looking all the way down to the back of the field, we see Timofeo here, who did not have the opportunity to take part in qualifying. I've had it confirmed to me due to the fact they had a pit. I believe it was a drive-through penalty which they did not serve at what was Zolder, so that is carried through to a qualifying ban here at Brands Hatch. So Timofeo starting last of our drivers, but now as we look forward to getting racing, we see Daniel Tran as well starting at P23 in the Mercedes for the Half-Life team. What can he do on his debut? But we now look back towards the front, ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to get underway with the manual double-file rolling start. We go round for a lap, of course, and it is Kieran Prendergast who takes us away. As all of our drivers pull off the line here and make their way around the circuit, of course, so Prendergast, he will set the pace in terms of this manual double file line start. He does have to drive within a certain set of speed limits here, but he will determine whether this is going to be a very rapid one in terms of the maximum possible speed, or just a general one, or a bit of a slower one here. But you can imagine the pressure might be on him a little bit right now. He's probably been in this position before in other leagues, but not in this league so far, as we do see there Harry Phillips as well, really getting the move on there. In fact, going around the outside of Prendergast here. Prendergast taking his time, just easing it around the circuit right now. I think Phillips as well, just pulling around him, trying to get the message through to him. Remember, I was the guy who should have been on pole. And that just puts Prendergast under a little bit more pressure as well. But drivers are allowed to do that as long as they return back to their starting positions by the time we get into the final formation of the manual double file rolling start here. As we see Faulkner back in that P6 right now. And then a little bit further back there, you can see we've got Waterlux and Airfinstedt, the two drivers from TUG at SimGrid here, both in the similar liveried cars, in fact identical livery cars, as we see Airfinstedt here making his way around right now as well. And as they come all the way down at Pilgrim's Drop here and make their way all the way through to Hawthorne's Corner here, you have got Fabio Chiena here in the P12 position, where he's listed as P13. I believe that is where he'll be starting. Korogowski will jump back ahead very shortly. In fact, no, my apologies. Chiena was at P12. We just had our time screens glitch out very shortly there. But what can Chiena do from that position? He'll be looking to try and get inside that top 10. That will probably be his target today, given the fact he's qualified quite close to the top 10. As we see them all now starting to come down to Westfield Bend, and this is where the field starts to bunch up a little bit, because of course it's the case that we've got some very tight sections coming up. Gareth Mills, or Millsy as he's known by his friends here, the GM Racing drivers, we jump on board with him briefly, making his way down towards what is Westfield. And as he currently does so, what will be going through his head? I think he'll be looking for that top 20 finish here. He'll just try and do everything he can to keep it nice and clean and consistent. But as we jump to the helicam right now, we look back up towards the front of our order, and they start to file their way into that manual double file rolling start here. All the fields start to consider together as they make their way down clearways and head towards Clark Curve. And it'll be Kieran Prendergast who takes us away for 75 minutes of racing here. You can see behind both Phillips and Mesa so eager to go racing. But let's let Prendergast take us away. And it's go, go, go for round number 3 at Brands Hatch. We can see immediately Phillips going on the offensive here to around the outside, but he can't find it as Prendergast holds the line. Further back, Marcus Fox losing a position already to Lara, who's had a phenomenal start. But look at this from Phillips. He's already trying to go for the move. Once again up into Druids, but Prendergast defending it well to the inside as we see further behind there. Fox going wide as they all come out of Druids here. Further back, we can see Seedor has had a mistake. Something's gone wrong with Seedor. He's dropped all the way down the order. As meanwhile, we look back up towards the front. We see Faulkner on the rear of Fox right now as they charge up towards Surtees corner here, and behind them you can see you've got the 2 McLarens there, FHD and what is Lux, really pushing hard early on here and trying to get close in, but it's been quite a calm opening lap for most drivers so far as they all make their way now down Pilgrim Shop and head up towards what is Hawthorne's corner, and you can see Seedor dropping all the way down, but none so for Prendergast versus Phillips as Phillips looks at a move early into Westfield. He goes to the move on the inside here. Prendergast's got to be careful because Phillips is there. There's a little bit of contact as Mesa tries to come through. They're going to go 3 wide here down Dingle down. There's not enough room for 3, let alone 2, as they make their way all the way through the corner, and you can see that Phillips has gained the position. Prendergast flashing his lights, I think a little bit aggrieved at the contact, but immediately Phillips looking to get the move done before they even complete 1 lap here, and he's made it happen. And as they make their way down through Clark Curve, that is the opening lap completed, and look at our top 3 go. They are all immediately chomping at the bit here, so as they come across that timeline, it is Harry Phillips leading by only a couple of attempts a second ahead of Kieran Prendergast, followed by Andrés Mesa in P3. Then it's Pacalara in P4, holding on after a very good start versus Peringer in P5. Then you got Fox in P6. Then it's Faulkner in P7. Faulkner looking for the move here, but he can't quite find it. Or can he on Fox? Not quite. The door was shut before he could get it open as they make their way out of Druid's corner. Then we've got Ulrich in P8, followed by Lux in P9. Lux and Effenstein, and phenomenal starts to pair of them. The 2 TUG Simgrid drivers having a really good start. We see Effenstein then making his way. Oh, goodness me, Korogoski into the wall. He's into the wall. The front of the car's crippled. He's come back on circuit. Careful, everyone, as they make their way through. And oh, goodness me, that looks as though they've got Velkoski coming through, and Korogoski just too snappy on the power coming out of what's Graham Hill Bend as everybody comes roaring through, and they're having to dodge the wounded McLaren. I think there we have got a car that's spun. I'm trying to see who that is. I think that is the Bentley of Chris McKenna that's had a spin there coming out to Surtees. I'm not sure if there was contact. The stewards will be looking at that one in due course, but it has been a disaster for McKenna and also for Korogoski. But looking back up front right now, Harry Phillips is absolutely flying. He's put already a second worth of daylight between himself and Prendergast, and they haven't even done a second lap right now. Phillips going to work immediately here. He's not letting anyone come back at him right now as they make the way to complete lap number 2 of this race. And as they come across that timeline, you can see Andrés Mesa tucked in behind the Ferrari of Prendergast here. And I think for Prendergast, all he needs to do is think about finishing on that podium right now. He doesn't need to do anything crazy. He needs to keep it smooth. It's been a rough start, but he's just got to keep his head down. As you can see, Mesa, meanwhile, all over the back of the Ferrari driver, the Aston Martin driver, trying to find a way into this one, but can he? That's the big question. As we see Faulkner right now really attacking Fox in the battle for P6. We ride on board here with Ethan Faulkner. So as he makes his way through Graham Hill Bend, you could see the slide he had there for Graham Hill. Faulkner really wants to get past Fox as early as possible, as we've got a drive-through penalty for Walter Lux here, and we'll check in as to why he's got that penalty very shortly, as we're just waiting to find out. Nothing so far, so I think it might be the case that Walter Lux was out of position in the rolling starts. That's why he's been given the drive-through. But for looking at the pictures right now, we can see Faulkner looking to the inside versus Fox through Hawthorns. He wasn't able to find it there. He's got to have an overspeed then. He didn't quite have it, but he has made Fox make a little bit of an error on the exit there of Hawthorns as they both come through Westfield Bend here. But you can see now as the circuit narrows, this is the challenge, and for Faulkner, he hasn't got enough momentum to claim the inside into Sheen as he hits the curb too high, and it means that Faulkner has gone wide there out of the corner. He's been able to get it back together, but Faulkner just pushing a little too hard, and the front right wheel just simply clapped the apex there too high on Sheen curve. Sheen proven to be a very difficult corner as he makes his way out of what is Clark curve now and heads around for another lap, but that has cost him major time. But fortunately, no damage to the car, and I do not think he's picked up a flat spot from that. But meanwhile, we can see already Lux taking his drive-through penalty due to being out of position in the rolling start. As we can see, Ulrich really pushing on in P8 right now, and Effenstein in P9. As they all make their way up the hill in towards Driz. And then we've got a sizable gap to Fabio Chiena here in P10. where Kienna's got the pressure of Tom Gander right now. Gander all over the back, and these guys have made some significant gains at the start. Remember, Gander started P14 and Kienna started, if I remember correctly, in P12. So these guys have come together and they've gained what is 3 and 2 places respectively as they make their way down towards Surtees corner right now. And Kienna holding that inside line versus Gander, but he's going very defensive through Surtees, and this is going to give Gander a huge opportunity. But do keep in mind that Aston Martin, based on the BOP, does have the straight line speed to hold off the Ferrari. The Ferrari not able to carry the momentum, but Gander's going to look for a potential move, try and make Kienna make a mistake, but it's not enough. Kienna wise to that, he knows he's got the overspeed as they make their way through Hawthorns and up into Westfield now, and as they come through Westfield here and head all the way down through Dingledale, you can see Gander very close. He's so close he could reach out and touch the back of the Aston Martin as we see some dust being kicked up ahead through what was Sheen Curve there. I think we had a car who's had a very slight off there, but no major disasters right now as they charge around through the corner. But you can see here Gander once again very close. He's got to look for the move on the inside. They're going up into Clark Curve. He's on the inside versus Kienna, and I think Gander's going to claim it. There's a tiny little tap between the two of them, but we can see behind now Scott closing up on this pair as they make their way across the timeline to go on to what is lap number 5. We look back from what is Gander's car right now. You can see, oh goodness me, Kienna going for a bit of a lunge down the brakes. I think he missed his braking point more than he went for a lunge, but you can see he's made a major error. And as we look back now, you can see that Kienna has got Scott all over the back of him as the Tamiya Racing driver here has to contend with Scott, who's really trying to push the limits in that McLaren. But look at Velkoski. Remember, Velkoski started really towards the back, and he has gained a lot of places with the incidents that have happened on the opening couple of laps, plus the penalties that have been assigned out. And as they make their way up into Sheen Curve, you can see Scott going defensive versus Velkoski. But remember, going defensive into not into Sheen Curve, my apologies, into Surtees, we should say. Going up into Surtees does mean that for the driver on the inside line, they lose all the momentum they need down towards Hawthorns here as they come through Pilgrim's Drop into Hawthorns at turn 5. It is the case of Velkoski trying to put Scott under pressure and get Scott to make a mistake, but it does look as though right now Scott seems to have things in sync. But we'll wait and see as Andrew Jacklin is just behind in P14 right now and trying to close up. As the cameraman spins around here, we can see that Jacklin, the Aston Martin driver, doesn't have the handling of the guys ahead in the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars, of course, of the Porsche and the McLaren, better through the corners, but Jacklin carrying a lot of momentum out into these straights here. And for Jacklin, this is what he needs. He needs that momentum, so when they come onto what is the start-finish straight down the Bramham straight, he's able to go on that offensive as they charge out of Clark Curve here, out turn 9 and onto that straight. You can see he's lost a little bit here, and they make their way around for another lap. Now, meanwhile, up ahead, I can tell you in the battle for P2, Prendergast still holding off Andrés Mesa for the time being. These two have been slugging laps left and right now. Their last lap, Prendergast at 23.1, Mesa at 23.0. Meanwhile, Phillips in the lead at 22.7. Harry Phillips is already 2.5 seconds up the road. That's because he's been pulling out roughly 3 to 4 tenths of a second a lap so far, and we're only on to lap 6, it should be pointed out right now. But Phillips does not want to wait around. He just wants to get on with the racing and disappear off into the distance here, and that was the biggest concern that Mesa had, was the fact that he'd be seeing the rear end of Phillips's car. And it is the case that right now he's not seeing the rear end of Phillips's, he's seeing the rear end of Prendergast's car as they make their way through Sheen Curve, and Prendergast really struggling for the run off of Sheen Curve, and you can see that it just does not look a happy Ferrari right now as Mesa chases after him all the way down towards turn number 9 as they come into Clark Curve. There's no attempt to move this time as we ride on board here with the Aston Martin driver, and the Distinct GT driver really struggling to find a way through. Prendergast seems to have an answer when Mesa needs to be able to ask the question of him, and as they make their way down to Paddock Hill Bend once again for the 7th time of asking here, you can see as they make their way up the hill, it's the case that Prendergast, who should be vulnerable here, this is when Mesa should have the potential to strike. Prendergast just seems to not have enough momentum through the corner, and as they now make their way down through Druids into Graham Hill, he's lost out considerably. They're having a poor run out of Druids as they come through the left-hander at turn 3 and now make their way down towards turn 4, down towards Surtees corner, and as they come into the left-hander here, is it going to be the case that Prendergast nails the exit here? They both make their way through. You can see Mesa riding high on the apex curve there, and it's just not the car slightly wide, and this is, I think, what the problem is. Mesa just cannot get the momentum in place to be able to gain the ground as they make the way up into Hawthorns here, and if Prendergast can keep this together and keep the line sensible, I think we could see that Mesa will need to make an early pit stop. Alternatively, he's going to be stuck behind Prendergast for the majority of the race here, because Prendergast does have an answer right now. That Ferrari proving to be strong enough versus the Aston Martin as they make their way up into Sheen Curve once again. Now, as they make their way through here, we can see and starting to close up a little bit. It's in these final couple of corners where Prendergast really seems to struggle here. It might be a little bit of timidity on not pushing it too hard through the final sector. We look a little bit further out, and what I can tell you is that with regards to Brandon Warren here, up into P20, the Nissan here making his way all the way down towards Hawthorne's corner here, the American from VRS Satellite Racing, of course, on his debut in this series in Season 2. Of course, he raced previously in Season 1. He's making a good start, and we can also see that Daniel Tran behind in the Half-Life machine. They're going a little bit wide out of Hawthorne's corner, but up in P21. So these guys who are new to the Season 2 racing, and particularly Daniel Tran, who is a newcomer to the entire series, both currently just battling for the last place in the top 20. As we look a little bit further up front, once again, we can see here Harry Phillips really in a world of his own right now, just running away with things as it currently stands. He's already lapped Chris McKenna, but McKenna, of course, had all that damage to his car, and he's decided to take an early pit stop. Hold on a second, and I believe we've got Andrés Mesa here really starting to mount a charge here versus Prendergast, but Prendergast defending to the inside through into Hawthorne's there, and that's the thing as well. Prendergast knowing to go defensive early here, as we see the track temperature has dropped by a degree centigrade compared to qualifying, so those tyre pressures may be struggling on certain drivers' cars. Other drivers who might have overpressured the tyres deliberately will now be getting their tyres into that optimum window. I do think that we're going to see these two start to experience a move between one another in the near future, because they're getting ever closer. And it should also be pointed out as he makes his way through sideways there through Sheen Curve, Faulkner with a very loose rear end on that Ferrari. He has passed Marcus Fox. We didn't see that on camera, but he has passed Marcus Fox to P6. But right now, Faulkner has got a 3-second gap to close down to Piringer up the road, and a further 2.5 seconds on top of that to hunt down Paco Lara. So right now, these guys battling for that P6 position, and it should be pointed out, we haven't seen too much of him. Here's Paco Lara in P4 right now, running at a really good pace and matching Mesa and Prendergast in terms of lap times right now. But Lara on that last lap at 23.9, Andrés Mesa in P3 by comparison at 23.9, Prendergast at 23.6. So for what is Lara, this is looking to be perhaps their best race of the season so far. But of course, we do still have just over an hour to go, so it's not as though this race is any time near finishing right now. As we look a little bit further down that order, we can see Fabio Chiena here in the P11 position right now, just outside that top 10. He's fallen away from Tom Gander after Gander found a way through, of course, and Gander making his way off into the distance. And Chiena right now down in that P11. He's got Scott closing up a little bit behind him, but the field is starting to space out a little bit, and I think this is just the natural ebb and flow of Brands Hatch, of course, and that's where the strategy becomes so important. And if you're wondering, by the way, when do you know a driver has pitted, and we know they've cleared that mandatory pit stop, you can see next to their driver number there in the top left corner of your screen, there's a white one with an orange background to it. When that goes green and the number disappears, they've taken their pit stop, and we'll be using that, of course, to track who's pitted and who has not. But as we can see here, Chiena making his way through what is Westfield now and through Dingledale and up into Sheen Curve once again. Scott definitely closing on the back of Chiena here, and this could look as though it's a potential move on the horizon, although I think if Scott's going to make a move, it's probably going to be within the next 2-3 laps, because it does take some time to build up the momentum to make that potential move. But Scott definitely stronger in that final sector as they come roaring out of the final set of corners here and through the right-hander turn at number 9, also known as Clark Curve, and heading across that timeline. And we ride on board here with Scott, and you can definitely see Scott getting much closer here as we get the camera from the roll cage as they make their way in, and Chiena going deep into Paddock Hill but collecting the car, and Scott not confident enough to take as much momentum as he would perhaps like. And I think Scott aware of the fact he doesn't want to come in too close behind Chiena, because otherwise he's going to have to try and get his car out of the way at the last possible moment in the run-up towards Druids here. But you can see Chiena gaining in the opening sector here as they make their way through Graham Hill Bend, and as they come through turn 3 then and up towards Surtees turn 4. No change between these two right now as they continue as they are. But meanwhile, speaking of people who continue as they are, I can tell you that Prendergast now has pulled almost a 1-second gap over Andrés Mesa as they make their way through what is turn number 8 there through Sterling's corner. And you can see a little bit of traffic here. Timofey just ahead, a lap down as they make their way down towards what is Clark Curve here through turn number 9. And as Afel will be expected to move out the way, and Afel getting a little bit snappy on the rear end there, trying to make his way out of the way there, respecting the blue flags and doing a bit of rally cross for the audience on the grandstands there. We can see that Prendergast and Mesa right now just simply nose to tail here, but the gap has opened up between them two, at least half a second, if not a bit more, as they make their way through the hairpin of Druids once again. I think Mesa might have backed off the car a little bit just to try and cool those temperatures, particularly those brake temperatures, and he'll be getting going once again very shortly. As we come to the end of the first 15 minutes, and we now move in to the remaining hour of racing. As we look a little bit further back here, we can see Paco Lara holding on to that P4 position for the time being, 3.3 seconds clear of Piringa in P5 right now. And it is the case that Lara does seem to be the best of the rest outside of the podium finishers, but of course it could all prove to be naught if something goes wrong in the pits or a mistake happens. We should not count our chickens just yet. It will be the case that Lara will be pressing on, as will everybody here. But something that is starting to build up, we are seeing here, Reina Effenstedt in P9, but look behind him, who's starting to close up. If you're wondering who we're referring to, well, in that distance right now and emerging gradually a little bit closer is a Ferrari 488 in the capable hands of Tom Gander, the Ferrari driver, making his way through Hawthorns behind Effenstedt right now, and it does seem as though he's taken some time out the P9 man. That last lap, to give you an idea, Effenstedt was a 24.864, Gander a 24.0, so Gander took the best part of 8 attempts out of Effenstedt in the last lap. I think that might have been a mistake from our P9 man, but it's still the case that the momentum and the signs would show that Gander is closing. You can see he's taken a further 2 attempts out in the run from what was Westfield down towards Stirling's, and as they come charging down towards now into Clark Curve here at turn 9, it is the case that Effenstedt is losing time to Gander here. Gander really starting to up that momentum, and this is great to see from Gander after 2 somewhat difficult races. He's now competing for that top 10 right now as they make their way into Paddock Hill Bend for what is the 12th time of asking here, but you can definitely see Gander is inching ever closer. That last lap he took what was almost 6 attempts out of Effenstedt as they make their way up into Druids. He's definitely going to be on the warpath very soon as they come through Druids Corner here, and you can see Gander all over the back of Effenstedt now as they come down to Graham Hill Bend. Now, of course, these two cars, both mid-engine rear-wheel drive, we know that the McLaren is a little bit stronger on the straights typically versus the Ferrari here, but the Ferrari is more of an all-rounder. The problem with the McLaren is it's so reliant on its aerodynamics to give it its pace, and I think that's what Effenstedt is struggling with a little bit right now. He seems to be struggling to get the car to stop wiggling through the corners, and when I say wiggling here, I mean that the rear end's coming loose, so he's experiencing elements of oversteer here. But to those of you tuning in who don't know the terminology, you may think it's wiggling or just understeer, as he does understeer a little bit wide through Hawthorns, and you can see that Gander decided to take a look there on the inside into Westfield, but he couldn't quite find it and he backed out of it, but he has run onto the dirt as a result there. He just cost himself a little bit of momentum as they cut through Sheen Curve, and Gander just needs to call it down right now. He has got Effenstedt as a target, but he doesn't need to do anything considerably impressive right now. Just stay there, wait for the opportunity. It's going to be some time. I think it might be the fact that Gander thinks he's got the pace to chase down Ulrich, who's only 3.5 seconds up the road, but first he needs to focus on the guy ahead, and I'm sure he's doing that right now as he gets a little bit close here. They go across that timing line. He's getting very close. They're looking into Paddock Hill Bend. He's going to look to the inside, but he's not close enough. He just takes a little bit of a sneak peek there, the Briton, to say to Effenstedt, the Austrian, okay, I'm coming for that position. Be wary. My Ferrari will be looking on that inside shortly. And again there, you can see into Druids just pulling out slightly, not looking to lunge, but definitely sending the message through to the McLaren driver. I am here now, and I am going nowhere but either down the side of you or staying right behind you. And that is a horrible place to be when you know the driver behind, or when the driver behind signals to you, I am faster and I'm trying to come through, as they make their way through Surtees Corner here. And as they roll out, you can see it's the case that Gander just simply trying to find that momentum. But meanwhile, speaking of drivers trying to find momentum, we can see here it has resumed from earlier. Prendergast in P2, Mesa in P3. This battle has come back alive again, and I think what Mesa was doing for a couple of laps was cooling the tyres and the brakes. He's taken a lot out of the front brakes and tyres, we're hearing, down in the paddock, as to stay this close to the back of Prendergast's car here. And Prendergast, of course, in that clear air, doesn't have to worry about the fact he's not getting cool air being fed into his brake ducts. Meanwhile, it is the case that for Mesa, he's definitely having to run off the warm, dirty air off the back of that Ferrari, and you could see how he really is trying to close Mesa into the brake zone. He wants to be close enough to be able to just put his nose down the inside of the Ferrari, but Prendergast just has an answer for everything Mesa can do right now as they make their way through Graham Hill Bend here. And I think what Mesa's really got to do, he's got to find one corner where he can be so close as to get Prendergast to make a mistake, and he's got to capitalise on it. It's only going to be a mistake from Prendergast right now, or an absolutely brilliant pair of corners somewhere around the circuit from Mesa that's going to make the difference, because you can see the two of them are just so closely matched in lap time. And again, last lap, Prendergast a 24.0 and Mesa a 23.9. These two are inseparable in terms of lap time as they make their way around, and we can see here Effenstedt has got ahead of Gander in terms of time out and track. He's opened that gap up to about a second now, and I think Gander might have just simply backed off a little bit and is waiting for an opportunity. He was getting close, but I think Gander's had a slight mistake somewhere around this lap, and in fact he has had a mistake because his last lap was a 25.8 versus Effenstedt's 24.8. So I think Gander just simply pushing a little bit too hard and now needs to calm the car down before he goes racing once again. But we look a little bit further down that order. We can see Velkoski here in P13. He's got Andrew Jacklin behind him. Jacklin, of course, in the rather fruitful lime green liveried Aston Martin there behind our Porsche drive from back to motion, and Jacklin trying to find a way through here as they make their way out through Dingledale and into Shinko. And you can see Jacklin just sensing a potential opportunity. He's too far back, but what Jacklin's trying to do, he's trying to make Velkoski think he's going to try and come through into Sheen, which not in a million years would you come from that far back into Sheen unless it was, say, BTCC and the driver ahead had had a mistake. But meanwhile, as they make their way down through the right hander there, oh, what is Clark Curve, you can see Jacklin looking ominous and rather threatening as they make their way across the timeline here, and Jacklin stands that inside, going for one of his faster laps around the circuit here, and as he makes his way through, he's just looking for that opportunity, trying to sniff the opportunity out. As we can see, there is a drive-through penalty to Walter Lux, and we are just checking in with regards to what is our stewarding right now. We do have an update on that, which we will give you very shortly, but look at this once again, ladies and gentlemen. Andrés Mesa has dropped back to almost 2 seconds off Prendergast. I think he's made a mistake somewhere around on the lap, because that is not natural. If he was falling back and intentionally trying to pull back off of the driver ahead of him, he would let it open up to about a second to 1.2 seconds to get that cool air flying into the brake ducts to protect the tyres. But you can see here he's really falling back. He's closing again though. He's already going to work on closing his Mesa as he almost runs away. He's literally on the limit of the width of the circuit there at Clark Curve. He's trying to find a way into this, but that last lap of 23.7 versus a 23.3 from Prendergast, it's definitely the case. He's made a mistake somewhere and his time has been costed as a result, as he now tries to get back into the fight. But meanwhile, we look up towards P4 and we can see Lara right now in a world of his own and seemingly holding on, as behind, not in a world of his own and having perhaps a bit of difficulty holding on. It's Piringer, Ralph Piringer here, and look behind him, that is Ethan Faulkner, who's now really coming out the trees here and going on the offensive as they make their way down towards Graham Hill Bend here. And it is the case, do keep in mind, with the BMW M6 that Piringer's riding, this thing is a monster on the straights. We have seen that V8 twin turbo works phenomenally on the straights, particularly in the upper echelon of the gears compared to that Ferrari's V6 engine, as Piringer goes wide out of 30s, but now he's got that straight line, the acceleration to be able to hold on. Now what can Faulkner do in this situation? That is the big question. Well, I think for Faulkner, what he's got to do, he's got to get as close as possible through this second half of the lap, through where it's Hawthorne's round to Sterling's. That is where the Ferrari is going to be phenomenal compared to the BMW, and you can see that already. Look at this through Westfield. You can see Faulkner getting ever closer, and he's looking for it as the cameraman spin it around here as they make their way through Sheen Curve, and Faulkner all over the back of Piringer like a bad rash here. And as they come through Sterling's, this is where it's the case that Faulkner needs to be this close and just stay within a tenth or two as they make their way up into Clark Curve, because he's never going to outrun Piringer on the straight. But what he can do, if he's that close to Piringer for a lap or two, he can make Piringer go into a mistake by simply being intimidated by Faulkner's presence in his rearview mirror. That's what he'll be targeting. Alternatively, he can absolutely now paddock Hill Bend compared to Piringer, then he'll try and send it up into Driz. But right now, as they make their way through, you can see, look at Faulkner, he's looking to the inside, he's not close enough. It's a repeat of the last lap here, but will it be the case that this time he does find a way through? You can see he's all over the back of Piringer down into Graham Hill. Not a place to overtake due to the way the Apex tightens on entry, but you can see Piringer's made a mistake here. I think Faulkner might be looking to the move onto Surtees here. He looks to the inside, and Piringer goes deep. We see Faulkner on the inside here. They make their way through the corner, and as they come through, it's now the case that Faulkner has taken the lead position out the two of them here. This is the battle for P5, of course, and Piringer with the run wide there. You could see what Piringer was trying to do. He was trying to go deep to come back on the straight down Hawthorne's, and it was not going to work in the end, unfortunately, because Piringer went a little too deep. Oh, and goodness me, Piringer running wide there, holding onto the car, but I think Piringer has perhaps taken a little bit too much out of the tyres there, trying to defend versus Faulkner, and that has cost Piringer the space and a little bit of time as well. As meanwhile, the battle for P2, it's good we come back to it. We can see that Prendergast under huge pressure from Mesa once again here, as they make their way across the timeline to go on to lap number 18, and Mesa all over the back, forcing Prendergast to go to the inside into Paddock Hill Bend. But the two of them, great racing room respect shown here as they make their way up the hill towards Druids. Now surely Mesa's been the closest he has been. He looks inside, but Prendergast covers it off. He's not close enough, and you can see as well the difference in the braking styles. Mesa going very deep on the brakes at last minute. Prendergast going really gentle on the brakes at first and then building up braking force into the course, and that's why he can defend so well into the heavy braking zones such as Druids, because Prendergast isn't applying full braking force so early or late. He's just bringing that braking force in, whereas Mesa is going for it all at the last round, and I think that's why Mesa has to pull back and cool the car down, because he's taking so much out of the car to be this close and go on the offensive. As they make their way through Hawthorne's corner, they've got a little bit of traffic ahead. That's Zaffaratos just up ahead of them right now, who's our P21 driver, a lap down. Now, of course, how can Prendergast clear Zaffaratos? Can Mesa use the fact they've got a back marker ahead of them to act as essentially a cushion to get him really nice and close to Prendergast and then find a way through? As we can see, Prendergast already flashing his lights here, and I would imagine that Zaffaratos will move off the racing line as they come out. He does indeed. He moves out of the way for both drivers here as they all charge down towards what is in towards Clark Curve, and you can see Zaffaratos staying right out of the way here. Mesa would have been absolutely fuming if Zaffaratos had resumed the racing line. They're going through Clark Curve, you can imagine. I think there would be some rather rude Spanish obscenities being thrown about, but still, as they make their way charging over the hill, great racing respect shown between these guys and Zaffaratos for obeying the blue flags, which we do love to see. And as they make their way up the hill now towards turn number 2, it is the case that Mesa's got to find a way to mount that challenge once again, but I think this is going to go on for a very long time between these two. They do not seem to have a weakness or an advantage. They both seem to be so even right now, and as they make their way through, Prendergast shows of opening there. He goes a little bit wide out of Graham Hill Bend, and that is going to give Mesa a bit of confidence to know that perhaps he's starting to chip away at Prendergast in vulnerability as they make their way through Surtees and now down Pilgrim Shop towards Hawthorne's corner. We check in with you guys and girls in the chat once again. And we can see there Craig Pearce talking about the patience from Faulkner, as we do see here Prendergast holding on for the time being. We also look a little bit further around the field right now. We can see Emil Blaine here in P15. He's just cleared Walter Lux, who is a lap down after a second drive-through penalty. And for those wondering why did Lux get a second drive-through penalty, it was the case of number 530 car. Well, he's had 2 drive-throughs, in fact. It was for contact with car number 199 and also contact for car 48. For avoidable contact, 2 drive-through penalties for Walter Lux, as he's down in P25 currently and not having the best of races, and Blaine just trying to find his way through and get above the top 15 right now. But we come back to our battle for P2 right now, and we can see Prendergast and Mesa inseparable, only separated by a tenth of a second on that last lap. Both of them running in the high 23s. Harry Phillips, our leader, is the best part of what is 13.5 seconds up the road on these guys and just running off into distance. But Prendergast trying to do everything he can to hold off the Aston Martin driver. Now, as they make their way around towards Surtees once again, I think this is starting to open up. Mesa just letting the gap open to cool the car down a little bit. Let's take a little bit of a look further back here. We can see Marcus Fox in P7. He just got past Daniel Tran, who is in P22, the Swiss driver, of course, a lap down now. But we can see Fox is 6 seconds down on Piringer, and as he makes his way through, the driver behind him, Ulrich, is the best part of 5 seconds down. Speaking of Martin Ulrich, we haven't seen too much of the M Technology driver, but what I can tell you is that Tom Gander is really closing up to the back of Ulrich here as they make their way through the left-hander of what is Surtees, and Gander, well, he was all over the back of Evenstedt and he got past Evenstedt, and as they make their way out of Surtees here, Gander really on a charge here. This is phenomenal stuff from the Ferrari driver. No disrespect to Ulrich, of course, to be in that P8 position, he's got to be going fast, but Gander is coming out of nowhere here at Brands Hatch and really putting in a solid performance right now. Now, how can he beat the AMG machine? That'll be the big question, of course, the big beefy V8 versus the V6 of that Ferrari as they make their way through the right-hander there of what is turn number 6 through Westfield Bend. And up into 7 as they come through. Oh, goodness me, and Gander into the wall. Gander just simply running on the grass there and smashing into the barrier there as he makes his way back on the circuit. I think he's just grounded on the barrier, in fact. But that was a very uncomfortable one, and that's dropped him right back into the clutches of Evenstedt here, who would love to have an opportunity to come back at that P9 as they make their way through what is Clark Curve for the 20th time here. But you could see Gander really struggling with the car here. The damage on that car right now, I think for Gander, this could be the case. He's going to have to look at an early pit stop here rather than going to his preferred strategy, because Gander was absolutely flying until that instant. I think Ulrich will be breathing a sigh of relief, and Evenstedt will be now smiling, thinking he's got an opportunity to come back at the Britain as they make their way through Druid's corner once again. And you can see Gander really struggling to turn the car through the corner there. It's that damage on the front left side, and that means through any right-hander as it goes deep into the corner. Yep, that car is really hurting. I think we're going to be seeing Gander come into the pit because the damage on that car is not enabling him to run it as he would like and he is now starting to fall down the order at a rather horrific rate. As we can see, meanwhile, F State carries on in P9, comfortably in P9. Meanwhile, further down, we've got Jacqueline here, who has got ahead of a number of drivers here, particularly Emil Blaine, and now he is chasing after Scott as he makes his way out of Surtees corner here. Jacqueline currently P13. As we look back up towards our battle for P2, you can see that the gap between Prendergast and Mesa has opened up, considering Mesa running 3/10 of a second slower that lap versus Prendergast right now. And I do think for our P3 man, he is just simply backing the car off before he looks to go hunting once again. 45 minutes remain in this race. Of course, we have cleared 30 minutes so far. And I can tell you, whilst Harry Phillips has disappeared off into the distance after getting past Prendergast on lap number 1 with a very elbows out move, he just wanted to get past Prendergast as soon as possible. Prendergast has not been easy pickings for Mesa. He's not been easy pickings for Phillips, to be fair, as Mesa goes a bit wide there out of Surtees. I think Mesa might have taken a bit too much out of the tyres of his car because he's not looking very comfortable right now. But it's the case the Spaniard has not been able to find a way past the Ferrari driver, and it must be a very frustrating race so far for the Spaniard. Can he find a way to invert his strategy or just find a way past Prendergast? I think it's going to have to be strategy. Can he do it? That will be the big question. But meanwhile, down in P15 here, we do have Jesse Monrose continuing on his way through the right-hander here of Paddock Hill Bend onto lap number 22 for the Frenchman. The BSP Racing driver here has gained a couple of places on the opening portion of the race in the opening half. And as he makes his way through that right-hander here, just keeping it nice and simple through a Druids. He's got a 3.2 second gap to Christian Ablasser in P16, but he is the best part, 7.5 seconds down on Emil Blaine, who's in P14. We also look a little bit further down when we've got Eduardo Tripiana here, who, having started right towards the back, the Spaniard in that P17 position, chasing after Ablasser right now. The gap is 1.3 seconds and closing, and we will keep our eyes on this gap. We can see that Tripiana's car quite heavily wounded on the front. It's that Porsche, quite a few bumps and dents on the front there. I think that may have been some of the contact on the opening laps, which we've heard about. We didn't see, but as he makes his way down Pilgrim's Drop here and into Hawthorne's corner, Tripiana definitely trying to close up to Ablasser. That last lap, however, 3/10 in the favour of Ablasser. As we continue to look around the field, it is the case that Velkoski, meanwhile, well, he's just had to let Ulrich through. Ulrich, of course, a lap up on him, and he has got Daniel Tran, who is trying to catch up to him. But Tran is a good amount of time behind. 3.3 seconds back right now. You can just see him in the rear of the picture very slightly as he's coming up the hill towards Druids. But it is the case that Velkoski right now, in a little bit of a no man's land. Zafaratos is in P20, the best part of 17 seconds up the road. But remember, Velkoski has pitted, so as a result, we would expect that he would perhaps gain some positions when other drivers begin to conduct their pit stops. As we see Ulrich there drifting his way through what was Surtees corner there, our P8 driver, and definitely I think starting to feel the wear on those rear tyres in that Mercedes. The M Technology machine pushing hard. As they make their way through, we look back up towards the front of our order right now, and we can see Prendergast really starting to hold a gap to Mesa. They both go across the line, literally identical lap times there, bar 400ths a second in the favour of Prendergast right now. And I do think that for Mesa, he's got to find another way through. He can't do it by simply trying to force a pass here. Or if he's going to be doing it for the 4th attempt. And surely the amount of information he's gained on Prendergast will mean that he'll have, every time he goes for it, he'll have more information to play with. But how much time does it cost him when he could try to do an undercut? Unless he feels his pit window is not open yet in order to be able to make the undercut, he's concerned he'll come out in traffic. Now, speaking of that traffic, we can see Lara here in P4, who is the best part for Mesa, 13 seconds. So Mesa would come out behind Lara for sure. And then Faulkner is a further 4 seconds down the road. And we'd expect that potentially Mesa would also come out behind Faulkner. So I think it would be the case that he's worried about coming out around Heringer and Fox, who are further down that road, further 8 to 12 seconds. And that would be the concern for what is our Spanish driver up in P3 as it currently stands. But meanwhile, we can see here Fox just carrying on his way in that P7 position right now. And again, a lot of our drivers now experiencing what I like to refer to as that no man's land syndrome, whereby they're not really anywhere in the race in terms of hunting someone, or they've got someone close behind them to defend against. They will try and close down to the driver up in front, but it's about focusing on that lap time, as we see Fox go there a little bit deep through Westfield, but keeps the car nicely together. But meanwhile, one driver who is carrying on despite the damage on the car, Tom Gander, has been passed by Effenstedt. We did see, of course, Gander run deep into Graham Hill Bend, and that's how Effenstedt got past. But Gander is continuing to drive there with a wounded Ferrari. It's particularly on that front left side that the car is wounded after an incident here at Sheen, where he just simply ran off the circuit and into the barrier, the outside barrier. But we can see that the Briton doing everything he can to stay in this one, and actually running very similar lap times. They have not, in fact, faster lap times than Effenstedt. That last lap, he took 4 attempts out of the P9 man in the McLaren here, and Gander is not giving up. He is digging incredibly deep with that wounded car, and I think for Gander right now, that if he's able to build this pace up, which he is building this pace up, he's just taking another 3 attempts out of Effenstedt. We could expect that he could come back at Ulrich. I mean, who knows? Perhaps he could go chase down Ulrich and then Fox. I mean, to give you an idea, Ulrich right now is running a second slower than Gander and half a second slower than Effenstedt, and that is phenomenal as we see Gander really coming alive in this race. But of course, we do have that concern about, is he running the car with less fuel, or is he going to have to put in more than just a litre of fuel when he comes into the pits? Will he go for a tyre change? Is he taking the tyres to town? Those are all the questions that we do have to wonder when we have the pit stops start to occur. But everybody right now in our top 20 really playing rather quiet and peaceful with regards to their pit stops. We're not seeing anything, as we do see that Korogodsky did retire to the pit lane early on, and meanwhile we have got Walter Lux here in P25, where he's just had Emil Plain pass him a lap ahead. And we also did have the very early retirement of Lucas Seedor, I should point out. So we have lost a couple of drivers in this race so far. We lost 2 drivers, but otherwise everybody else soldiering on despite the conditions and how their race has played out well or difficult so far. As we look back up to Fox, continuing in that P7 position, we can see Zafratos behind a lap down here. And it is definitely the case that for Fox, Piringer is 4 seconds up the road. That last lap, Fox took 2 attempts out of Piringer, but we're not expecting these gaps to come together anytime soon. Now, as they make their way around, of course, at this point, the question is, with respect to that pit stop, do we expect drivers to be taking new pairs of tyres, putting in fuel, etc.? Now, I would say, given the fact we're doing 75-minute races here, and we have seen so far, particularly at Donington when we had the dry conditions, most drivers decided to do the race on a single set of tyres, and they did not spend too long in the pits. I think a lot of our drivers here will be attempting to do the race on 1 pair of tyres, and with all the fuel in the car from the race start. So I would expect all of our pit stops are going to be relatively short, but of course, some drivers may make mistakes in regards to determining the strategies. We saw from Phillips when he tried to set his strategy and the team came out with a fresh pair of tyres and took his old tyres off at Donington, and that's something which could happen, but also it may be the case that some drivers who have pushed very hard in this opening half of the race suddenly get impacted by the fact they haven't got the tyres available to the very end, and we'll wait and see. But I can tell you now that Fox is definitely stripping time out of Piringer here. He's just taken 3 attempts out of Piringer over the course of the lap so far here. The BMW driver just up the road, and we can see the driver of Piringer making his way through Clark Curve. In fact, we now jump to look at Piringer here. We can see really pushing on, but those lap times are going in the favour of Fox at this point in the race. As he crosses the line, a 25.5 for Piringer. Meanwhile, for Fox, it is going to be a 24.9. That is 6 attempts taken out on that lap alone. I think if this continues, that within the next 6 laps, Fox is going to be right in that striking position to attack Piringer here. And I do wonder for the BMW driver how much of a defence he can put up. He's got the straight line speed advantage over the Porsche. We know that. But in terms of the corners, that BMW is having to be slung along those corners right now. And Piringer to be putting the BMW up in such a position is a testament to his ability in the car. But how deep can he go and how long can he hold off the pursuing pack of, well, particularly the Porsches behind him? As we see, he makes his way out of Surtees. Now, meanwhile, looking back to our battle for P2, we're always conscious of this. We can see as we reach the halfway distance, it is the case that Prendergast still holding on. The gap 2 seconds to Mesa. So Mesa's calmed down a bit here. The lap times between the two of them, the Spaniard, that last lap 3 attempts slower. What about this lap? As they come across that timeline, of course, Prendergast was a 123.9, Mesa, meanwhile, a 124.1. So I think for Andrés Mesa, what he's having to do, he's having to bring the car back into the race trim right now. I think Mesa's taking so much out of the car on those opening attempts. And also what he may be trying to do here is see whether he can outlast Prendergast in terms of strategy. Now, do keep in mind, we have seen from a lot of our drivers in the opening 2 rounds, particularly our top 10, they like to go as late as possible in terms of when they go into the pits. And we saw it, Zolder, some drivers, Mesa in particular, pitting on what was the penultimate lap, the last legal lap to pit, effectively. But it didn't work out, and they're just trying to find something different. And I think what Mesa's trying to do here, he knows he can't get past Prendergast via overtaking unless he exerts a huge amount of effort to do so. So what he may be doing, he's waiting to see when Prendergast pits, and when Prendergast pits, what Mesa may do is he runs a bit wide there out of Hawthorns. He's really having to work this car right now because it's not going to come to place this Aston Martin. Yeah, I think he's trying to calm the car down a little bit and then put in qualifying laps as soon as he sees Prendergast come in. But then again, if Mesa doesn't decide to pit yet and Prendergast comes in, it all comes out in terms of the traffic. Will Prendergast come out into traffic? Will it be the case that he doesn't come out into traffic and really can attack in response? As we do see Harry Phillips into the pits here. Now, this is quite an early stop from our race leader. Will we see anything equivalent? Well, we've seen Tom Ganders come into the pits as well. That's him in the rear of the camera. And as he makes his way along here, we can see everybody in it. We've also got, I believe, that is the Mercedes of Daniel Tran in, as we can see all of our guys in, and Mesa into the pits as well here. So it is the case that our two championship contenders in terms of our top two, with Prendergast also up there in the top 5 of the championship, they've pitted, but Prendergast has stayed out here. Now let's take a look and see where, well, Phillips has already completed his pit stop, has Andrés Mesa here, so as they make their way out of the pit lane here, I think it is the case that they're just doing short stops. They've got the fuel in the car already, they're putting in the litre and running that splash and dash, as we see that Phillips has come out in clear air. Where has Mesa come out though? That's the big question. We've got Piringer up the road, only 2.5 seconds up the road, and Fox just behind him. Now for Fox, this is a disaster, because what Fox was doing, he was really closing up to Piringer, as we see a stop and go 30-second penalty for Daniel Tran, and I believe that that is for speeding in the pit lane for our newcomer today, as we see them make their way around. And I think for Daniel Tran right now, he's going to be kicking himself a little bit, because that stop and go is going to completely take away any opportunity he had of finishing above that P25 position right now. Of course, anything can happen in the remainder of the race, so let's not count him out yet. But the Half-Life Racing driver here finding it a little bit of an unwelcome experience at the Brands Hatch circuit, as I believe just up ahead of him here, we've got Ulrich and Effenstedt coming to blows, unless I'm very much mistaken. No, it is the case. Yep, Ulrich and Effenstedt. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen, and ahead of Velkoski, getting the blue flags being waved through here, and it's the case that Ulrich has really been condensed up behind the Porsche driver, who's pulled back onto the racing line there, right in the way of Effenstedt. Effenstedt is not going to be happy with that. No, sirree will he be with that, because that has just cost him all the momentum he could have gained, and Ulrich right now needs to capitalise on this, because if he doesn't, then Effenstedt's going to be all over the back of him very shortly. We were seeing earlier that Effenstedt was closing a couple of attempts a lap, but he's really pulled that gap down as they make their way through in towards Sterling's corner here, and as they come through that left-hander at turn 8, it is the case that right now Velkoski is proving to be a bit of a sore thumb for Effenstedt, and he's staying on that line. He's not noticing those blue flags at the moment. I wonder if he's a little bit confused, that he's perhaps thinking that it's the wrong driver here, as we do see, I think he's pulling off the line now, or is he? Well, he's not moving off that racing line. He is staying in there, foot fully to the floor here. And Effenstedt, I think, is going to be absolutely seething at this, because this is stopping him from closing up. Meanwhile, Mesa versus Fox, well, I can definitely tell you that Andrés is moving away from Marcus behind him as they make their way through Surtees' corner here. And I think what Fox might be doing, he might be giving himself a little bit of a respite here and not pushing too hard, because what he'll hope is that perhaps that Piringer will go longer than Mesa would like, and so Mesa will have to overtake Piringer on circuit. And as he does so, perhaps there'll be a little bit of a battle between them. Perhaps he'll cost Piringer a second, and as a result, then Fox will be able to close back down that second by default. The gap between Fox and Piringer, I should point out, is only 3.3 seconds right now. So that second, if it was to be taken out for an overtaking move, that would be perfect for Fox. That would enable him to close up as they make their way through Sterling's corner for the 30th time of asking here. Now, with all of this playing on, of course, we can tell you that with also Daniel Tran, I can just see out my commentary box window right now, is coming for his stop and go 30-second penalty, and he has just completed that penalty. But we can see here Mesa all over the back of Piringer. Now, where does he go for the move? He needs to make this move. This is critical for Mesa to be able to come back at Prendergast at the end of the race here as they make their way up the hill towards Juris. He's not close enough to look for that move this time around, but there's a lot of traffic ahead, and I believe that's Daniel Tran who's moved out the way, and it's a case that Piringer went deep and Andrés Mesa was able to take the move on the inside there. Mesa patient and Piringer just a little bit deep on the brakes, but it's worked out for the pair of them. And in fact, Piringer has timed that very well, because Fox now is the best part. Always 3 seconds back, and that has not cost him too much, as we hear that Ulrich has come into the pits from what was P8, and that means that Effenstedt right now has been promoted to P8 here, and he continues on. But remember, he has got a pit stop to do, and this is going to be big for Ulrich. But the one driver right now who we will be watching with every eye fixed on, he's just got a repaired car, is Tom Gander right now, who was flying before he had that incident. He was flying after he made his way back onto the circuit after going into the outside wall through Sheen Curve. We'll wait and see what the Briton from tganderservices.com is able to do, because honestly right now I think you could be looking at a driver who could come into the top 10 right at the end here. He is absolutely flying around the circuit, and if he can nail it there, as we do see, I think that's Faulkner behind, who's run a little bit wide on the exit over Clark Curve there. He did indeed, that is Faulkner, but right now Gander is going to be flying at 25.4 there from Gander. And to give you an idea how that lap fits in, everybody else right now who's doing laps in just outside of the top 10 is in the 26s or high 25s, and that's matching the pace all the way up to P7 right now from Tom Gander. Gander is going as fast as our drivers, almost in the top 5 right now, and that is phenomenal. As we say hello to Ant Brown in the YouTube chat, we're sorry to miss you today in terms of racing, Ant, but I hope you're doing very well. And we can also see Matt Evans there in the Facebook chat. In the case, do I ever take a breath? Unfortunately, I'm not contracted to breathe, and you didn't let me do that, so as a result, it's a case for racing. And I should point out, Matt Evans there in the Facebook chat is one of the Next Gen Racing organisers who organises the iRacing GT3 Series. So if you want to know more about that, Matt Evans is your guy too, but we focus on the ACC Series here tonight and now, and as they make their way through the circuit right now, you can see Gander trying to press on here, as behind you can see Harry Phillips closing up here on Ethan Faulkner. The gap is now only 1.4 seconds. Faulkner yet to take his pit stop, of course. As we do take a brief breather there and a quick sip of water, of course, and you can see at this point, I think Phillips, what he'll be doing, as Gander has moved out the way, I think he's going to respect those blue flags very shortly for Phillips, most likely on the Brabham Straight, either start-finish straight, as they make their way through the right-hand or Clark Curve here, and with 30 minutes to go, it is building up to a crescendo here with regards to not necessarily Phillips, who I think will be right out in front when all the pit stops are completed, but definitely Andrés Mesa versus Prendergast. Now, where is Prendergast? He is making his way through Surtees corner right now, yet to take his pit stop, of course. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him. Meanwhile, where's Andrés Mesa? He's making his way through Paddock Hill Bend, and he has just cleared a load of traffic. And his next opponent, or his next bit of traffic, is Tom Gander, 4.2 seconds up the road. As he makes his way down the hill here into Graham Hill Bend. Now, looking a little bit further back in terms of the battles right now, we can see Brandon Warren here still to take his pit stop. He's got Gareth Mills ahead of him, and these two have been closing up to one another for some time. We ride on board, of course, with Brandon Warren here in the Nismo machine as he charges his way up into Hawthorne's corner here. And as they come through, you can just see there in the dashboard window, it is the case. You've got Gareth Mills just up ahead there. And really, Brandon Warren, it's good to see him back out on circuit, of course, and the only driver to go with the Nissan. A lot of question marks over that choice of car here, as we see blue flags now starting to be waved through with Faulkner coming up behind these guys, but as he makes his way through with the beast from the east, it is the case that we've got Warren really pushing hard versus Mills, but these two quite similar on pace, albeit on that last lap it was the case that Warren took 5/10 of a second out of Mills as they come roaring up towards what is Clark Curve here, and as they make their way through the right hander, we look to the exterior cameras here, and Mills definitely under low pressure as Ethan Faulkner comes into the pit for his scheduled stop. He's in from what was at the time P3, and that will promote Harry Phillips behind back up into P3 right now, and Paco Lara up the head in P2, and then we've got Prendergast, of course, in the lead right now. But our lead driver who has pitted is Harry Phillips, who's right behind these guys, and I think he'll be very wary of the fact that he's expecting Warren and also Mills to start to respect the blue flags as they make their way into Graham Hill Bend for what is the 33rd time of asking. And we can see Jesse Monrose has just pitted, as it is the case that Warren moving out the way, and we can see the flash there from Phillips towards Gareth Mills. And I think what Warren's hoping here is that Mills will back off as he makes way out of the corner. In fact, this is exactly what he's looking for. Mills backed off through Surtees here, and this is the best opportunity that Warren's going to get in a drag race down towards Hawthorne's. He looks the inside here. This is the battle for P15 as they make their way into the right hander, but he's not close enough under braking. The brakes and the aero package of that McLaren stronger than with respect to the Nissan by comparison as they make their way now through the right hander there of Westfield Bend, turn number 6. As they make their way down the hill, it's going to be the case that Gareth Mills will try to hold on to that position. Of course, this could be a very good result for Mills if he's able to hold on. He's got that pit stop to take as well. And look who's coming up behind them now. We said he was going to come on strong as Jesse Monroe's pitted, so it means Gander's already gained 1 place, but now he's making the moves. He's got Andrés Mesa ahead of him as well, and he'll be hoping that Mesa acts like a bulldozer effectively and gets the two up front to lose a lot of time, and as a result then he can make some simple moves on those guys ahead of Warren and Mills for P15 as they make their way on to another lap here. But Gander will need to play this one patiently. He's got 26.5 minutes to go. Can he get himself back into that top 10? He's got the pace to be there, but can he do it? That is the big question. But meanwhile, with this all going on, we look to our P6 driver here, Marcus Fox, who is continuing to close up to Piringer in the battle for P5. Last lap around, they literally matched each other. Fox a 25.116, meanwhile Piringer a 25.149. It's the case that Fox is eking that gap down inch by inch, but I do think that Piringer seems to have found a bit more of a flow right now. Piringer seemingly losing a little bit of flow midway through the race, but he's found it again now, and with only 26 minutes remaining, can Piringer hold off the Porsche driver, or will Fox be able to outsmart the BMW driver? That's the big question as they make their way down towards Hawthorne's Bend. As we look a little bit further back down our order here, we can see a Blaine charging after Monroe's here and getting very close to the Nordic Racing Team driver, to the back of the BSP Racing driver, as they make their way charging down through Pilgrim's Drop up towards Hawthorne's here. And you can see Monroe's going defensive. They both pitted, so this is a battle for final position as they make their way into the corner, and Blaine just looks inside. Monroe's leaves the door open, but I don't think he was going to be able to make the move, but it was a good attempt there. And you can see he's definitely showing to Monroe's that he's not afraid of taking the gamble there into Hawthorne's, and Monroe's has got to be careful of that, because if he leaves the door open too much as they make their way for a shinko, and Blaine's got it a little bit wide there, but stopped the car very well. Well, think what you say about Blaine. He is keeping that car well under control, and as a result, when it does go wrong, he's able to recover it very quickly here as he chases after Monroe's. The battle for P18, whilst it's not for a huge number of points to these guys, it's the equivalent of picking up a race win as they make their way through at the right-hander here of Clark Curve and onto another lap, but you can definitely see Monroe struggling versus the Aston Martin racing driver there of Blaine for the Nordic Racing Team as he makes his way into the right-hander, and Monroe's goes a bit deep once again into Paddock Hill Bend. I think Blaine's going to look for the move on the inside here. Up into the braking zone they go. Blaine on the inside, Monroe's on the outside. I think it's going to be a traditional pass at Druids as they make their way down the hill right now, and Blaine up into P18. Nice move, and now they make their way onwards and upwards. And meanwhile, we can see Prendergast here as he makes his way across that timeline. Everybody now is waiting to see when our current race leader is going to pit here, and will the BP Racing driver go as long as he possibly can? Now, you may be wondering, why would he choose to go very long in this race? Well, look at the fact he has not really had much traffic to deal with. The next piece of traffic he's got is Lux. Walter Lux, that is, 6.7 seconds up the road, and then he's got Daniel Tran, and then he's got a little bit of gap to Chris McKenna. What it means is for Prendergast, what he might be trying to do right now is simply outlast Mesa in terms of the traffic. He will feel, Prendergast, that there's not enough traffic ahead of him to cost him time versus what Andrés Mesa is having to deal with. Now, Mesa is into P4 already. We saw that happen. He's been moving up the field rather rapidly here, and he's not far off of Harry Phillips, in fact, it should be pointed out. He's only the best part of 3.5 seconds off of Harry Phillips right now, and is really pushing is Andrés, as I can tell you that in terms of lap time, it is the case that Mesa has gone a second faster than Harry Phillips on that last lap alone. So for Mesa right now, he's really having to get the move on because he knows the Aston Martin. Oh, goodness me! And that looks as though that was Trippiani. They're getting it very wrong and almost forming a roadblock on the apex there of Surtees. And I think what happened was Trippiani just simply overturned the car, got a bit of oversteer on the apex of what was Surtees, and then he had to try and force the car up onto the curve to get out the way of Mesa coming through. But Mesa in avoiding that contact, that was very close for comfort. But both drivers able to get away with it okay as they make their way around the circuit. But Mesa right now is literally putting in a qualifying stint. This for Mesa right now, he has to now every lap as if it's a qualifying lap, because it is the only way he can be back in the fight with Prendergast, and on top of that, potentially hunt down Harry Phillips, who's now 3.2 seconds up the road. And you can see Mesa could see Phillips here, and he does not want to finish behind Phillips. If he can take the shot, he's going to go for it as he roars his way for Clark Curve. But of course, the big question that we have is Phillips simply staging his pace right now? Is he just managing the pace on the car rather than pushing hard? Has he got a lot in reserve? Is he driving at, say, 85%, whereas Andrés Mesa might be driving at 100%? That will be what we see over the next 22.5 minutes as he makes his way up through Druids Bend once again here. Meanwhile, Rainer Effenstedt, he's chasing after Ethan Faulkner right now. Faulkner, of course, recently pitted. Effenstedt has yet to pit, as we see Jesse Monroe's there moving off the racing line a lap down on these guys. And Effenstedt making his way through at the right-hander of Clark Curve right now. Not coming into the pits this time around. Instead, waiting at once again. And meanwhile, we can see that Tom Gander is on the back of Gareth Mills right now. He's closed up. He took that last lap. Well, in fact, that last lap, Tom Gander lost 2 seconds. So I think there might have been a bit of an incident. In fact, he's been letting traffic through, has Gander. As you can see, he's letting both Fox and Piringer through. And speaking of a battle, Piringer is in the front of your camera right now, but look who's behind him. That's Marcus Fox. Now, we have been building up to this over the course of 75 minutes of racing. Well, really, I should say it's been over the course of 55 minutes of racing so far, and it is the case that Piringer here really struggling with the car, and both of these guys have yet to pit, as should be pointed out, but it does look as though Fox is in a much more comfortable state of affairs as they make their way down the hill. We're right on board here with Fox. You're right on board with the Fox Sim Racing team driver here as they make their way for the right-hander of Sheen Curvin up into the left-hander of Sterling's. Now, where can Fox go for a move? Well, he's got to do it somewhere where he can curb the momentum of the BMW, because remember, when that BMW gets on the straight, and you're seeing it right here, look at how it just opens the gap. But of course, as they now come into Clark Curve, this is where Fox can close up the distance very rapidly before they make their way onto another straight, and this is where that BMW needs to be neutralised. Fox has got to find a way to get the move done somewhere between Surtees and what is roughly through Sheen Curve. He's got to get it done in that space, because as soon as they come up towards Sterling's, if he's not ahead by that point, it is the case then Piringer will make that BMW work as he slides through the corner and Fox has to back off. But it does look as though as they make their way down the hill now towards Graham Hill Bend, it looks though Piringer's really struggling, and I wonder if Piringer's going to have to take a second set of tyres, because that BMW is not looking in a comfortable condition here as they come into Surtees' corner. Now, what can Fox do to try and min-max through the corners, you wonder? Well, he can try and go a little bit deeper into Surtees, so that way he gets a more speed-orientated exit out of the corner. He's done that here, but you can see in response he's only matching the BMW prowess here, and that's what the Porsche's got to deal with, and I think that's what Fox is doing. He's experimenting with different exit lines to try and give himself the best top-end speed at the end of a given straight, and he's making that work because he's staying right there appearing now as we jump to the exterior cameras once again here, and as we pan through and see Gareth Mills has just let these guys through, and he's now falling back towards Gander, who's trying to catch up. Gander 1.5 seconds back on Gareth Mills as they all make their way for the camera shot through Sheen Curve here. 20 minutes remaining. Velcott, well, that's Trippiano who moves off the line there, and in the process of moving off the line, look at this, ladies and gentlemen, you can see Trippiano's lost the place to what is Mills, and now he's got Gander over the back of him here, and Gander is trying to capitalise on where other drivers are making mistakes. So you see Trippiano there, peels into the pits, that's why he stayed on the inside line, and Gander carrying the momentum through and trying to find a way to hunt down Gareth Mills right now as they make their way up towards Paddock Hill Bend once again. But we look back to our battle for P5, nothing occurring at the moment between these two, but you can imagine that at any moment Fox will look for that move. This is all over the back of Piringer, who has to literally park the car, and you can see here how it's the case that Warren is all going to speed, and Fox is going for a move, a very, very adventurous move into Graham Hill Bend. There's contact between the two of them, and Piringer rejoins ahead of Fox, and I think Fox backed off there to not take the place there, but a very opportunistic move from Fox, and you could see why he attempted it as Warren moves out the way there on the exit of Surtees, but it's gone a bit wrong for Brandon Warren as they make their way down Pilgrim's Drop now towards Hawthorns here. I think Fox thought that Piringer had overbroken for what was the Graham Hill Bend at turn 3, but in fact, as they went into the apex there, the apex tightened so much, and there was so little space for Fox. In the end, he's literally turned into a little bit of a bullet there, but what it means now is they make their way through behind them. Well, if you wanted a closer battle for P14, you've now got it, because with Warren having to back off so much, he's got Mills and Gander all over the back of him as they come roaring through Sterling's Bend here, and as they do through turn 8 and head down clearways towards turn number 9 right now, you can see Mills and Gander would love nothing else but to go on the offensive versus the Nismo machine as they make their way for the right-hander here. The American will do everything he can to hold on with a slightly damaged car, and as they come across that timeline to go on to what for them is their 40th tour of the circuit, you can see Gander is also there in the rear of the picture, and he's trying to find a way past Mills, but he won't want to lose time versus Warren as they make their way up the hill here, and Mills looks at the potential move, but he's not close enough. Great battling between these guys in the midfield, and we do wonder how it's going to play out as they make their way around once again. I can tell you that Marcus Fox did peel into the pits there when they came through to complete their most recent lap, so Fox has decided to undercut Piringer, who stayed out on circuit right now, as we jump back to the exterior cameras here, and as they make their way around through the left-hander here through what is through Surtees' corner, we look back up towards Harry Phillips right now, and I can tell you that Phillips has caught up to the back of Paco Lara here, and remember, Lara has yet to pit, and Lara is battling for position, so he can choose to really block Phillips, but what you can see, look at this, Andrés Mesa has closed up massively here over the course of the start of the second stint here, and this is really bad news for Phillips, who now Lara has moved out the way. Phillips is under pressure here for Mesa, and these are our two championship leaders as they make their way across the timeline here. Phillips defends the inside, Mesa Mesa's going to try and sweep round into Paddock Hill. Phillips squeezes Mesa to the outside there. Mesa's not able to find the cutback, but this is erupting in all different directions here with regards to the battles, as we can see that Phillips really struggling to hold of Mesa right now. And I do wonder, as has been commented on in the chat, whether there's something that's gone wrong in the pit stop for Phillips right now, because Phillips does not look to be in a comfortable place with that car, and that gap between himself and Mesa has been reeled down massively as Mesa looks the inside into Surtees, but he can't find it for the time being. And Andrés really pushing on hard here, as we see Denise Pope in the YouTube chat there supporting Mad Lad Harry Phillips there. And meanwhile, we can also see the comment from Craig Pierce about the tyre pressures with regards to Phillips' car, as we ride on board with Andrés Mesa here, who's going to be going for that offence versus the Bentley driver here. And remember, Mesa did say in that pre-race discussion he did not want to see the rear end of Phillips' car. He wants to be ahead of it, and they're coming up towards Dingledale and Sheen Curve right now, and Phillips goes a little bit wide through Westfield, which set off this whole chain with regards to being this close. And Phillips really struggling towards the end of this race. 16 minutes to go here, and you can see Phillips just not able to get the things settled right now. And on top of that, remember, Prendergast, our race leader right now, has yet to pit. Where will Prendergast fit into all this? As soon as we know that Prendergast is coming to the pits, we'll tell you about it. But you can see Mesa looking for the cheeky middle of the inside, but Phillips covers it off there, making the Bentley as wide as it looks as they make their way across the timeline into Paddock Hill Bend once again here. 15.5 minutes to go, and Mesa's looking for it, but Phillips gets a little bit of oversteer. He's able to defend to the inside up into Druids here. Mesa tries to close him on an inside line. They make their way through the corner here, and as they come down the hill once again, down towards Graham Hill Bend, this is going to go on for some time. But remember, we saw this between Mesa and Prendergast. In the end, Mesa had to back it off due to temperatures, and as they make their way up into Surtees, you can see Phillips making Mesa work every corner. He's making the car so wide, and Mesa just cannot find a way through it. Now as they drag race down Pilgrim's Drop here and head up towards Hawthorne's corner, 15 minutes to go, and they come charging up towards it. You can see Mesa trying to look around the outside, but he's going for the cutback here, as he's going to carry a lot more momentum up towards Westfield. But as they go into the corner, Phillips defends the inside here. Mesa looks at the cutback, and as they come down through Dingledale, they're almost side by side as they come up towards Sheen Curve here. It's Mesa on the inside, Phillips on the outside. They go through, and as they make their way now down towards Sterling's, Mesa has to back out again. He just hasn't quite got enough momentum to find his way completely through here. But as they come down through Clearways and in towards Clark Curve, it is the case that you would think that Mesa's going to find a vulnerability in Phillips' armour sometime soon, but will he? Phillips just seems to have an answer as they make their way onto another lap, onto their 44th tour. 14 minutes to go. They come through the right-hander at Paddock Hill Bend once again. And as they come charging up the hill here, you can see Phillips doing his standard defence to inside. But in return, Mesa's got to try and find a way to use this information. I can tell you, by the way, that Paco Lara, after their pit stop, has come out ahead of Ethan Faulkner. The gap between the two of them in the battle for P4 right now in terms of track position is 1.5 seconds. Lara with the advantage as they make their way then through Surtees corner. We look back at, of course, our P2 and P3 drivers here, who we suspect, subject to Prendergast's pit stop, would end up be battling for the lead right now, unless they're going to take a huge amount of time out of one another, and Prendergast will come out ahead of the pair of them, which could happen. We can also tell you that the track temperature has dropped by a further degree recently to 21, and Mesa right now just cannot find a way through whatsoever. As we jump on board with Harry Phillips' car here, as they come roaring down through Dingledale and up into Sheen Curve, and now I think Mesa's having to back it off. I think he's cost himself too much temperature here as they make their way into Sterling's, or is he just simply taking a brief breather and getting ready to attack again? Is he trying to give Phillips that respite to make him think he's saving, and Mesa's going to sunny send it? That'll be the big question as they make their way through Clark Curve to complete lap number 44 and go on lap number 45. As they come roaring across that timeline once again here. This time it's not a battle into the first couple of corners, but Mesa is starting to close up once again here as they come through Paddock Hill, and Phillips has made a mistake, just riding a bit too high on the apex curve here. Mesa's going to swing around. There's contact between the two of them, and Mesa slides with the tiniest bit of contact there, and I think Phillips will feel that he was fair enough to give him all the space there, and Mesa just simply a little bit too early of a turn in there, and as a result he's still in P3 right now. now, but the gap between the two of them opens up. I'm sure the stewards will be analysing that one with a magnifying glass sometime in the near future, but meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that Kieran Prendergast, meanwhile, our race leader who's yet to pit, is making his way through Kart Curve right now, and he's just simply putting in lap after lap at the same pace as Harry Phillips and Andrés Mesa, if not a little bit faster right now. He's got a sizable gap. Can this be the case that he's going to come out in the race lead after his pit stop? He's got 12 minutes to go. If so, this would be phenomenal. And look behind there, ladies and gentlemen, we can see the battle for P8, or P7 in fact, because ahead of them is Fabio Kina, but it's the fact that Kina has yet to pit, so this is really the battle for P7 that you're looking at right now. And we can see Fox looks the inside versus Peringa, and this time he's going to make it count as he makes his way through into Graham Hill Bend. It was a little bit adventurous last time around, but will Peringa come back at him? Not in the end. It's the case that Fox holds on as they make the way, but now it's the big drag race. This is the part where if Peringa is going to come back, he's got to do it up into Hawthorns because he's got the straight line speed versus the Porsche, but he's too far back. He cannot get the momentum here, and I think Fox has finally got it done. It didn't work the first time into Graham Hill, but as we know in motorsport, there's two very famous hills. There was Graham Hill and Damon Hill, and the second instance of the hill this time was able to give Fox the ability to come charging through as they make their way through Dingledale and up into Sheen Curve here, and we can see Fox starting to pull away. But meanwhile, if you're wondering about that battle that was building up for what was P14, I can tell you that Tom Gander has got ahead of both Gareth Mills and also Brandon Warren. Now, I'm not sure what's happened to Brandon Warren. He's all the way down in P20. I think Brandon Warren might have had an incident as part of that, or just a separate incident. But it is the case that Tom Gander right now in P14, and he's going to be taking P13 off for Ablasser when Ablasser pits, we believe. But the next driver up the road is Paul Scott, and Scott is the best part of 18 seconds up the road, and he has pitted. And with 10 minutes remaining right now, despite the fact that Gander is lapping a good couple of seconds faster than Scott, I think it's a long road and he's going to need something special to happen now. But meanwhile, whilst this is happening, Kieran Prendergast is into the pits. Where's Harry Phillips in all this? Well, Phillips is coming around to complete another lap, and it's Prendergast who's still in his pit box right now. So it will be the case that Phillips and Mesa are battling for the win here, and Prendergast, well, as he left his pit box, he's just leaving it now. So Prendergast is going to be behind these guys with 10 minutes to go, and the gap is going to be approximately 8 seconds. So right now, Prendergast needs to absolutely hammer the car around the circuit and needs Phillips and Mesa to battle one another absolutely savagely in order to close up the time right now. Otherwise, this is going to be a two-way battle for the win come the final 9.5 minutes concluding. And as they make their way through Surtees, you can see Mesa has been waiting for this opportunity once again. He started to close up here as they make their way in the run down towards Hawthorns once again on lap number 47. We ride on board with the Spaniard here, our championship leader after 2 rounds, who would like to take this win, would like to become the first repeated winner as they make their way up in towards Westfield. You can see Phillips defending there, but he doesn't need to completely hold that inside line, but he gets it a little bit wrong on the exit there at Westfield, and we saw this earlier, but Mason not close enough to go for the move. And as they make their way through the right-hander here at Sheen Curve, you can see Phillips has got it a little bit wrong. He's gone up onto the grass, but he's able to keep the car together. You're using the stability of the Bentley to his advantage to keep the car settled, and Mesa just cannot find a way to come back at him right now as he furiously works his way up through the gears here, and as he makes his way through Clock Curve in third gear, you can see he just wants to get the overspeed, he wants to get the run, he wants to find a way to get past Phillips. He's trying everything in the book. He's trying the overcut, the undercut into a corner, he's trying late braking, early braking, he's trying to outrun him, he's trying to make Phillips make a mistake, and as they make the way up the hill into Druids, Phillips holds on to that inside line, but we saw it earlier how Mesa just turned in a tiny bit too early, or was it the case there was something else that happened there? We're not 100% sure, but it didn't work, and he'll be a little bit sensitive to Druids right now, or will he? The Spaniard, I think, will go for broke here if it means he can take the win as they head up in towards Surtees. 8 minutes remaining right now. This is the closest battle on circuit, and it's the most important one, of course, because it is the battle for the win, and we're going to stay with it as Phillips has a poor run out of Surtees. Mesa right in behind, but the Bentley with its turbo able to concentrate it in the early part of each gear as they make their way up towards Hawthorns and into the right hand, and Mesa looks for the cutback here. As he comes through, you can see he's all over the back of the Bentley driver right now, and he's just not able to get clear. He's not able to get through. It's like a fly on the backside here, and Phillips is doing everything he can to try and shake him off his tail, but there's just no way of shaking off the Aston Martin driver here. As they make their way through Sheen, they head up into Sterling's once again. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be like this for the next 7.5 minutes. I'm not going to have a voice left by the end of this one as they make their way down through clearways, and you can see Mesa's looking for the outside here, and he's trying to get Phillips to go a bit deep. He's not able to do it, and Phillips just parks the car on the apex there. Phillips showing a masterclass in defending, and Mesa showing a masterclass in attacking. It's literally the case of what happens when unstoppable force moves an immovable object, and we have to wonder how that question's going to be answered. 7 more minutes, we'll know the answer come the end of it, as they make their way up into the right-hander here of Druids once again. And as they come through, what can Mesa do? Can he find a way? And to give you an idea, ladies and gentlemen, these guys are lapping 2 seconds a lap slower than Prendergast, who's in P3. Based on our predictions, that would mean that Prendergast, within the next 2 to 3 laps, will be right up here with this battle for the win. We might have a 3-way battle for the win come the final 2 laps as they make their way out of Surtees here. Once again, the Wild Things Racing driver there of Phillips goes a little bit wide. The Distinct GG driver of Andrés Mesa hunts him down. The pressure is mounted on Phillips, and he's doing everything he can to hold on. And you can definitely see why these guys have got the pro tags on their cars. But also you can see Volkoski has run wide out of Hawthorns, but he's rejoined there down in P22. But focusing on the here and now as they make the way up the hill here towards Sheen. Once again, you can see just no budging, no advantage to Mesa. Phillips just holds on for the time being, and Prendergast not closing up enough this time, as these two have had a very settled lap. I think it's the case that they've got to fight for Prendergast to be able to close up as they come roaring up through the hill right now, through the right-hander, and he's all over the back this time. And is Mesa going to try and go round the outside this time? No, he's not able to, but you can see he's trying. He's thinking about trying to hang around the outside of Clark as they make their way into Paddock Hill Bend, and this time he's got a lot of momentum as the Spaniard as they make their way down the hill now up towards Druids once again. He's got a lot of momentum. He's going to try it once again. He's going to try and go all the way around the outside, but Phillips blocks it off, and this time as they come out the corner, Mesa goes to the cutback as they come down the hill into Graham Hill Bend. They do so through turn 3 right now, and you can see Mesa's doing everything he can. He's trying to get Phillips to lose momentum. He's trying to cut back on Phillips going deep into corners by blocking, but as they make their way up into Surtees, Mesa tries it once more, but Phillips is early on the brakes there. He defends, but now as they come out the corner, this is Mesa's chance if he's going to look for it. He's got a lot of momentum coming out the corner here, and they make their way down towards Hawthorns, and as they come through, it's the case that Phillips parks it on the inside here. He looks to the outside as Mesa. Phillips widens the corner a little bit for the pair of them as they make their way through. Oh, goodness me! There's contact between the pair of them! Phillips is into the wall on the inside. It's the case that Mesa's into the wall on the outside, and Prendergast is through into the lead. Oh, my good Lord! It is the case that we have seen drama, and now with Prendergast, with only 4.5 minutes to go, the Ferrari driver has taken the lead, and he just needs to bring it home. My good Lord, it's going to be absolute riotous scenes down in the pit lanes and the garages for each driver right now. As we can see, I think Mesa's letting Phillips back through here. I think he feels that he contributed towards the incident or something, as we can see a flash of lights there from Phillips. I'm not sure if that's towards Keane or alternatively towards Mesa, but these two are going racing once again as they resume their previous positions here, and it is the case that these two are showing one another respect, but just a contact between the two of them there and causing that little bit of upset as they make their way through Paddock Hill Bend, and it's now Mesa on the inside here. But I think at this point it's the case as they come through. Mesa looks on the inside through Druids, and he's got the position, but I do wonder whether there's going to be a question to the stewards about that afterwards, folks. Feel free to give your thoughts in the chat right now. Keep it civil, of course, if you can, but we can see that Mesa has gained the position in the end on Phillips through Druids on lap number 51, but I do wonder whether it is the case. Perhaps it's the idea that Phillips has perhaps backed out of it a little bit, thinking that the stewards might take a look at what happened there, but it was all going to occur at some point, and it all exploded onto our screens at Hawthorns corner a lap ago as they made their way through, and Prendergast picked up the pieces and is now 8 seconds up the road as Phillips goes racing versus Andrés Mesa here. But I think these two have taken a lot out of one another, and I do not know whether they've got enough left in the tank to have one more battle between one another. As we can see there in the chat, Max Maliar in the YouTube chat, this didn't just happen. Oh, it did, my friend. It did indeed. And our two championship leaders right now have come to blows in round number 3. As meanwhile, Prendergast just continues his way. He has got 2 more laps of the British circuit to do here, and he's on course to pick up the win. As meanwhile, further back, we can see we've got Paco Lara here, who's held off Ethan Faulkner and has broken away from Faulkner. In fact, the gap has opened up considerably, and the McLaren driver, if they were to finish in P4, this would be a season best for Lara as they come through Clark Curve. And behind, we've got Faulkner here in P5 right now, just soldiered his way round, but he's got a sizable gap to Fox. And Fox versus Piringer, you're probably wondering at this point, are the two of them close together? They're not at the moment, I'm afraid. Fox is in P6 and Piringer is 5.8 seconds down the road. We're just taking a look through some of the other potential battles around the circuit as we see Christian Ablasser into the pits at long last, and that does promote Tom Gander up into P13 as he crosses that timeline to go on to his penultimate lap of the circuit, we believe. As meanwhile, a little bit further down the road, we can say that Chris McKenna right now is chasing well, he's being chased by Walter Lux here, and Walter Lux having to make that recovery effort with 2 drive-through penalties, and to get back to P17 is absolutely phenomenal from, I believe it was Lux for the 2 drive-through penalties, unless I'm very much mistaken, but he's trying to catch up right now as they make their way up the hill into Druids Bend here. But we do look around, we can see there that is Piringer going very deep and Lux being blocked here. Remember, Piringer is on the lap ahead of them right now, so this causes a little bit of a problem with the fact he's gone deep, because it will be the expectation that McKenna gives the place back, but he won't want to lose momentum versus Lux is right behind him, and you can see that the language of McKenna's car, he doesn't want to yield until he's got the right place to yield, and I think he's going to do it here up into Hawthorns. But meanwhile, Mesa versus Harry Phillips, I can tell you that the Bentley driver of Phillips has backed off here, and Mesa is currently making his way around in P2, but behind there, if you saw in the camera, you will have seen Fabio Chiena holding off Paul Scott here. This is the battle for P11, which is literally coming down to the last little part of the race right now with regards to it's the last minute as they make their way through what is Graham Hill Bend here, and can Chiena hold on for that P11 finish and what would be one of his best results of the season so far? And the same for Scott right now. That P12 would be fantastic, but can he make it a P11? That'll be the big question reigning over him as he makes his way down the hill, down through Pilgrim's Drop and up towards Hawthorns. But meanwhile, with regards to our race leader here, he makes his way through through the Westfield Bend and heads up towards Dingledale and also Sheen Curve. And I do believe this is going to be his final tour of the circuit as he makes his way now down towards Stirling's Corner. Well, what can you say about Prendergast? In the end, in the revised qualifying session, he put it on pole, but he very quickly got muscled through with regards to Phillips on the opening lap. But as he makes his way through the final corner, I do believe this is going to be the case, that he's going to come around to complete his last lap. We'll just see as he makes his way through. It's going to be, no, he goes on to one final lap. So Prendergast goes on to one more lap of racing here. It's not quite there yet, ladies and gentlemen. But what I can tell you further down, that Fabio Chiena versus Paul Scott, it is now a drag race up towards what is Paddock Hill Bend. They're on their final lap of race and they come through the right-hander here, and as they make their way through, you can see that Chiena just hold on to position right now. Scott looking around the outside into Druid's Corner here, and as they make their way, and of course Chiena holds that nice tight line here. Scott trying to go all the way around, not looking for the cutback. He hasn't got the momentum to do so as they make their way in to the left-hand now, Graham Hill Bend, and you can see Scott doing everything he can to get nice and close and get on the accelerator versus the Aston Martin, but the Aston Martin driver squeezing Scott to make him go around the outside here. He knows Chiena not to give Scott the opportunity to come through, because if he gets even a sniff of that inside line, he's going to take it. It's that late in the race now that it's going to be do or die for Scott as they make their way down the hill here, and Chiena block into the inside once again, and then coming back onto the racing line for Hawthorns. Scott not close enough here as they make their way through the right-hander, and now they come up towards Westfield Bend, coming into what is turn number 6 right now. Opportunities are closing, but meanwhile, as we were speaking about earlier before he went on to one more lap, as he comes to complete his 54 lap, it's going to be the case he couldn't get the win in race number 1, he couldn't get it in race number 2, but he's finally done it. We will have 3 different winners in 3 different races. He's held on in the end to take the win. Kieran Prendergast wins in race number 3 at Brands Hatch, winning a fantastic race, and it will be Andrés Mesa who crosses the line in the end in P2 ahead of Harry Phillips. But we do wonder what the stewards will have to say about the contact between the two of them, despite fantastic racing between the pair. And then it is going to be Paco Lara, who with a season best in the 3rd round will come out to the final corner to complete what has been a brilliant drive from Paco Lara in P4. The Spaniard doing everything right for the prototype racing team. And then we've got Ethan Faulkner with another top 5 finish. The distinct GG driver, that great consistency of top 5 finishes. Marcus Fox in the end as he makes his way now down towards the final corner here. The Fox Sim Racing driver not able to pick up the P5 today, but still a fantastic drive from the Austrian, and one which I think needs to be observed and remembered, because keep your eyes on this guy, folks. He's doing a fantastic job in the top 10 as he comes across the line there in P6. And then it is going to be Ralph Peringer. It wasn't to be his circuit today. He probably thought the car was going to be up against him at Brands Hatch, but still, P7, a top 10 finish. Peringer will be pleased, and the Jochen Schweizer powered by BMW team will be very pleased with that. And then we're going to have Martin Ulrich here with a P8. He's just held on the end with Effenstedt and Jacqueline chasing after him, but Ulrich comes across the line in P8 for M Technology. It's a P9 meanwhile for Effenstedt, Rainer Effenstedt from TUG Racing Esport, and then round off our top 10 is Andre Jacqueline. A brilliant drive from all of our drivers. Phenomenal racing, and we can see Fabio Kina in the end held on to P11 ahead of Paul Scott. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be bringing you your post-race podium interviews very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are going to kick off our post-race interviews very shortly, and we'll be kicking off with our race winner, of course, and that is Kieran Prendergast. We're just going to shortly be talking to him. In the meantime, it's been an absolutely fantastic race indeed. Many drivers commenting on great up and down the field battles. But without further ado then, let's bring Kieran into the room and have a chat with our winner. Hello Kieran, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Firstly, Kieran, congratulations on the win at Brands Hatch in round number 3. How does it feel to pick up your first win in the series?
It feels great. I'm very lucky, to be fair, because I thought Phillips was going to run away with it because of his pace at the start and stuff. But yeah, I'm very lucky to win this race, to be fair. But yeah, I'm happy overall.
So just taking it a step back, obviously we had the initial qualifying session and then the official qualifying session. A great qualifying lap for yourself to put yourself on pole. Just take us through that. Was it the perfect lap or was there more out there?
I reckon there was a bit more time in that that lap I popped in there, but the track wasn't quite rubbered in to start off with that session. But, you know, I made it count when it mattered as well. And yeah, decided to put myself on pole, but it didn't really mean nothing at the start of the race because I was pretty much jumped by Phillips because he had tremendous pace to start off with as well. But yeah, it was good.
But with the start of the race in particular, so a really close start between yourself and Phillips didn't seem to want to spend any time staying by yourself. Did it feel like a little bit of an elbows out moment, or were you sort of just expecting, okay, Phillips, here's the place, I'm going to make it hard for you, but you're going to get it?
All it is racing at the end of the day. He had his elbows out, he wanted the position, and he got it, which is fair play to him and stuff. But yeah, I just decided to just keep on going, keep on pushing and stuff. I was really surprised to see they pitted quite early because I thought everyone would have just sort of pitted a lot later on the race as well. So I knew there was some time to gain when I saw them pit as well, but I just wanted to just keep on pushing and just, you know, at least try to keep the gap. But I mean, as I was saying, Phillips was really fast today as well, and it was a challenge to keep him behind.
And then with respect to the strategy, so as you say, it was a bit unexpected that we saw some quite early pit stop from drivers in the top 10, such as Phillips and also Mesa. So with regards to yourself staying out as long as possible, were you just hoping that drivers behind would be held up through traffic and battling one another and you just inherit the time and the positions? Yeah,
that's what I was hoping for because Brands Hatch, the nature of the track, it's really hard to overtake around Brands Hatch, so, you know, back markers and even racing for position is going to be really hard to, you know, get past by. So yeah, I just decided to stay out as long as possible because the last 2 races, you know, I kind of was a fool to pit early because I lost so much time pitting early, and I noticed that this race I decided to take the opportunity to stay out.
And then with respect to when you came out the pit, so when you saw that both Phillips and Mesa were ahead of you, I would presume you're sort of, okay, they've taken me. But what about when you saw the lap time really coming down? What started to go through your mind there? Was it a case of, well, I'll take the place if I can get it? Or was it, right, it's on for the win now?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when I came into the pit, I overshot my pit box. So I had to reverse and then jack the car up. And then when I saw Mesa and Phillips go past, I said, that's it, the win's gone as well. So I was really surprised to see that they were only 7 seconds ahead because Phillips was something like 15, 16 seconds ahead of me going into the pit. So I was really surprised on how much, you know, I caught up to him with that strategy. But it looked like he was really struggling towards the end. He was doing something like 1 minute 26s, and then Mesa was capitalizing on that and managed to catch him up quite significantly, and then obviously them two got into a bit of an incident, which then ultimately gave me the opportunity to pass through and take the win.
And then one last question in regards to this race. Once you'd taken the lead, what was going through your mind for those final 4 laps?
I wish you could see my face. I was so happy. I was really happy with the with the race win. To be fair, even though it was an incident between the two that kind of made me win, I'll take it any day of the week.
Well, from the win tonight and looking ahead to Monza in a week's time, how are you feeling for the Italian Cathedral Speed?
I'm hoping to bring it home for the Ferrari around Monza. So, I'm going to bring the same sort of pace I brought today and hopefully for another win.
Well, on that note, congratulations on the win today, and we look forward to seeing you out on the circuit in a week's time. But again, brilliant drive. Well done.
Thank you. Cheers.
We're hearing there from Kieran Prendergast, very happy with his performance. You could just hear, I can imagine him beaming from ear to ear with a smile right now, and I'm sure his father in the chat right now, Prince Senior, will be absolutely joyful at his son's win. But a fantastic drive from Prendergast, but also realising that whilst he was getting closer to both Mesa and Phillips in their battling, in the end, a bit down to earth with regards to the fact the incident between them may have given him the win, and that's completely understandable to do so, but enjoying it as well. And a solid drive, it cannot be faulted or taken away from him. But now we must come on to interviewing our second place man, and that is Andrés Mesa. Hello Andrés, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Andrés, congratulations on the P2, but I can imagine it's a bit of a bittersweet one. How do you feel about this race?
Yes, it is. It is bittersweet feeling, as you say here, because the win was there to get it.
But just dialing things back, in qualifying, of course, we had the original qualifying session and then the restarted qualifying session. How did you feel with the lap that put you P3? Was it your best, or do you feel as though there was more out there?
It was definitely more, but it was really difficult to put the lap in, yeah, with the traffic, and I think I made a couple of mistakes invalidating laps. Yeah, I couldn't put the lap in, really.
Still, it's a good starting position in the race, and I've got to say, whilst it may not have felt this way in terms of your cockpit, definitely on the broadcast for myself and for a lot of people tuning in, the battle between yourself and Prendergast for the opening 25 minutes was absolutely phenomenal. Just take us through that, because it seemed as though every time you had an advantage, Prendergast just seemed to have an answer for it.
Yes, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't find a way past. I don't know if you saw the first lap, 3 wide nearly between the three of us. I had to lift there because it was not going to end well.
No, definitely. We saw that at Dingle-Dell, and in fact, it gave me flashbacks to what happened in the World Tour Series at Brands Hatch only a month ago when we saw 3 wide through there, and McLaren end up over the barrier at Dingle-Dell. I was thinking you guys are trying to repeat what's happened. But that aside, just take us through. So, with regards to chasing down Prendergast, there were moments where you were very close, and then there were moments where you seemed to pull back. Were you having to protect the temperatures of the car, or was it a case just taking a breather and then coming back at him?
I think he was making mistakes at the beginning, and then he started driving better and getting into the rhythm. And the gap got a bit more stable. That's all, I think.
I see. And then with regards to your strategy, so you pitted about 2/3 into the race. Was that always what you planned to do, or did you adjust your strategy?
No, I was thinking to do the same and pit very, very late. Well, I don't know. I wanted to get some clean air, because just do a quick stop and carry on. And I could see I caught up on Harry about 10 seconds in the pits.
Yeah, we definitely saw that, and that built up to the finale. If you would just take us through the battling with Phillips. It was phenomenal battling, and then what happened towards the end?
Oh, yeah, I apologized to him already, but it was great battle. Like, it's so difficult to overtake. He was struggling a lot. he said to me was his tires were completely done, and he went full defensive mode. And in the incident, he was just very, very slow on the apex. I didn't expect that. And I'm sorry about that. It's a shame.
It's fair play, and the fact that you've already spoken to him about it is fantastic to hear, because at the end of the day, whilst we do love to see great race in action, also great respect between the two of you, which I think, to be honest, the amount of respect shown in the racing room was absolutely phenomenal, and so many people have said about the fact that it was fantastic battling, and if we can see that throughout the rest of this season, it's going to be an absolutely cracking season. But with that in mind, we now look ahead to Monza in a week's time. How are you feeling for the Italian circuit?
So I think the Aston is not very good out there, so I'm not too sure. I don't think I'll be winning the race, so close to this one.
Well, fingers crossed for you. We look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time. But until then, congratulations on the second place today. And whilst it may not have been what you wanted, still fantastic racing from yourself.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed a lot. It was good fun. Thank you.
And going from Andrés Mesa there, we just heard with regards to the fact that really enjoyed the racing, but at the same time, kicking himself a little bit, and you could hear him there regretting the contact between himself and Phillips, but also the fact that he really enjoyed the racing, and that's fantastic to hear that he enjoyed the racing. He's already spoken to Phillips about it as well. We'll hear very shortly from Phillips with regards to his thoughts on what happened and also his race, but we are really building up to a fantastic season so far. I mean, going into this one, of course, Mesa was leading Phillips by only 5 points. You can imagine that gap now will come down somewhat, but after what will be next week's round at Monza, when we get to the end of the first half of the season, then we'll have a clearer picture of just how close it's going to be. But fantastic racing between the two of them. And I do think that Mesa's going to try and bounce back at Monza. He may not be feeling as confident as perhaps he was tonight at Brands Hatch, but definitely you can imagine he will dig deep and he will take the positives from today and the lessons from today as well, and he will go even further and step up his game going to the Italian circuit. And I can appreciate his teammates there in the Twitch chat, CJ Mac 92 and also Scudanero 67, both also tuning in and eager to hear his thoughts, and that's absolutely fantastic to see. But we must now come from our second place man to our third place man of Harry Phillips. Hello, Harry. Can you hear me?
Hi, Paul.
Harry, not the way you wanted the race to go. Third place in the end. How do you feel?
Mixed emotions, to be honest. Really needed that win, to be honest, to keep my lead in the championship. But with qualifying, the incident in qualifying, losing my pole position, and then having to make a hybrid strategy during the race start. P1 until the very last few minutes, and P3. Not a bad result, but not exactly happy.
So just taking it a step back, so I can appreciate this is something we're talking about quite a bit in the qualifying sessions. Obviously, we had the original qualifying session where you had a phenomenal lap in the end. I think it was a 22-1, unless I'm mistaken.
Yep.
And then having to build it all again in the second qualifying session. Was it just the case that the track conditions just didn't seem to favour you in that second session, or just trying to find the time didn't seem to happen?
Yeah, the track condition was fast instead of optimum due to the fact that free practice essentially didn't run. The track wasn't rubbered in, therefore my pressures were off, the setup didn't feel quite right, the car just couldn't go much faster, and I couldn't get the grip. I mean, I was very, very close to getting pole, but I just couldn't eke out the last 10th or so.
And then it was still a very good qualifying lap, and to be that close, I think it was in the end, it was 800ths between yourself and Prendergast for pole. In the race, we saw very early on lap 1, you really went for it. Just take us through that opening lap, because it seemed as though it was a case of you wanted that first place by the end of the open lap. There was no way you were not going to be leading going on to lap 2.
Yeah, exactly. I really needed that P1 ace as soon as possible. The strategy was thrown up in the air as soon as the race started, just simply because I need that pole position to get away as fast as possible, and then the standard strategy, which is what Prendergast did, which is pit very last minute, just take a tiny bit of fuel and then finish the race. But I had to go half a full tank, and just blast it as far away as I could. I tried to get a 30-second gap to them, but in the end I only managed 16 seconds, which was enough to keep me ahead even with a longer pit stop. But my tires in the second stint were flat. That's why Mesa called up to me super fast and I couldn't get rid of him.
And from just hearing from Mesa, he was saying about the fact of the speed at which he caught you, and then it was literally full defense mode until the very end from yourself. Just take us through that, because to be honest, we compared it to the equivalent of an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object, and which one was going to be the winner of the two. How did you have to sort of get yourself into that mindset as though every single corner you've got to find a way of holding his momentum back and making sure he doesn't get the cut back or an overspeed? Just take us through what was going through your mind.
To be honest, I wasn't thinking about it too much. All I was thinking was force him around the outside of every corner, because Brands Hatch pretty much doesn't allow outside overtakes unless you're absolutely rapid or you're letting them by, like via, for example, a back marker. So I was just making my car as wide as possible down the straights, keeping it on the inside, making sure I have the track position and the racing line. Making sure my exits were really tight, so the entries to the other corners I had the inside line. It was really, really tough. It was I think, to be honest, he could have had me in the next few minutes if he had held out around the outside of one of the longer right-hand corners, for example. He would have been able to carry so much more speed than I could have.
And when the contact happened up at Hawthorns, when we spoke to Mesa, he was saying about the fact that you're just a little bit slower on Apex than perhaps he anticipated, but you guys seem to have cleared it up already. Just give us your thoughts on what happened there. We're not trying to cause drama, of course, just keen to understand from your perspective being the lead car in that instant. Yeah,
of course. I mean, obviously, it's very disheartening, having P1 and then taken away from you, losing 2 positions at the very last possible minute of the race that you've been leading for an hour. The incident happened. I mean, every driver has their limits, and especially patience. And I was a slower car just simply because my pressures were incredibly low. I had no grip. The car would not accelerate through corners. So at the apex of every corner, pretty much, I was drastically slower. It could be like 20, 30 kilometers an hour slower than the Aston behind. But yeah, I spoke to Mesa. We've sorted it out. There's no bad blood between us. It's on to the next race. That's how it is. This is racing.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. And thinking ahead to the next race, we're off to Monza, the Italian Cathedral Speed. What are you hoping for at Monza?
I'm not very strong at Monza. I've never raced there more than 30 or 20 minutes, so I've got a lot to do, a lot of preparation to do, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, fingers crossed for you that you'll be able to turn things around at Monza, but until then, congratulations on the 3rd place. Appreciate it wasn't what you wanted to achieve today, but still plenty of races ahead.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
No problem. Hearing there from Harry Phillips, of course, who you could hear in his voice not overly happy with regards to how the race ended today, and it's that balance of emotions, brilliant driving and brilliant battling, and the fact that things between himself and Mesa have already been settled in a private conversation between the pair of them is fantastic. I should point out, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in the build-up to these interviews, much like you see on, say, Formula 1, when all drivers, the 3 drivers on the podium end up in the sort of pre-podium room where they sometimes talk to one another, we have an equivalent of that room on the Discord where where they sort of sit and wait for me to bring them into the interview box, and that's where they get the opportunity to talk, perhaps clear a little bit, talk about differences or strategies on moments in the race, and they've used that time to clear things up, which is fantastic to hear, because at the end of the day we do love a little bit of drama in terms of big battles, but we don't want it to become, as Harry was using then, a great term, bad blood between drivers. And I suspect that Mesa and Phillips will be able to bury the hatch on that one and move on to the next race in a week's time. But you could hear there, just did not seem to work out with the fact that Phillips set an absolutely phenomenal lap in the original qualifying session, which got taken away when we had to redo qualifying, and then he had to improvise a strategy over the course of the race because he was starting P2, so he decided to load the car with less fuel, which meant he had that longer pit stop, and he had to put the pit stop in at effectively the half race distance, and the tyre pressures in the end were what held him back from holding on to that lead and needing to go defensive to the very end, and then there was the contact. But still, what was the loss for two drivers, Mesa and Phillips, was the gain for Prendergast, and that brings us to a conclusion of today. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, or how you may get involved in the series, such as this one, feel free to check us out, our official Next Gen Racing website, that is nextgenracing.co.uk. Or you can check us out at our Facebook group, that's the Next Gen Racing Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. I'd also like to extend a big thank you to our partners, the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy, without whom this would not be possible. We'd not be able to bring you this series, the prizes, the stewarding, or the complete package. And next time, ladies and gentlemen, we do head to Monza, as said previously, for round number 4. Now, I should point out before you go anywhere that there will be, as I understand it, there is likely to be no broadcast on the night of the race on the Tuesday, unfortunately, as I'm not going to be available on the Tuesday. I'm not sure if we have got someone standing in for myself yet, but if it's the case that we don't have a stand-in, then expect there will be, or there is the intention to provide a post-race commentary on Friday, the 1st of October 2021, at the same time as we'd have the normal show tonight, and we'll try and bring you everything there in the post-race commentary. But until then, I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit. We have been Next Gen Racing, and this has been the Next Gen Racing Assetto Corsa Competizione European GT3 Series Season 2 2021. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.